Boom, 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 boom. Hey, dude, I fucking sit around singing this fucking theme.
Dude,
like,
I gotta ask
him
if he can make one for the two of us and see if he has
It's
any
so
ideas.
fucking good, dude. Oh my god! Literally, I'll be walking like in my bathroom, getting ready, and I'll be singing it.
Oh, we're a hot mic, Bob. They can hear us.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
To the case. To the case.
Well, Bob, now we know that when the intro, if I don't turn off our mics, that people can hear us. Good morning, everyone.
Hot mic.
Thanks for letting
Of course, I killed those people. Of course, I did. What? Of course.
Had a nice little Robert Durst moment there. Good
Dursty.
morning, everyone.
What is up, folks?
What another beautiful day. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day for our neighbors. Won't you be mine?
Be careful, Bob. I'm gonna get a copyright claim. That's too good. That's too good. I'm gonna get.
We'll get a copyright. I don't know. My did I sound like Fred Rogers there?
Yeah, it was too good.
Yeah.
Don't worry, folks. I'm keeping an eye. The court is up, but they haven't started yet, so don't worry. I will switch over to it once it starts. Thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you.
We love you guys. I hope you're having great mornings or evenings, depending on where you're at. Another, hopefully, not mind-numbingly boring day of court today. Hopefully, we get a little more action in the old courtroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and speaking of, me and Bob were just talking with our better halves. I think we got something exciting for you next week that I think you guys are gonna enjoy as far as our coverage, because we were talking Karen Reed starting next week, and
it's a big one.
It's a big one, and I think me and Bob are probably going to cover it, and then maybe get some highlights, and then have our better halves in the evening cover the highlights. So Shannon and Allie coming at you, not every night, but like a certain, maybe we'll get a schedule, whatever they can do. They'll keep you updated on this case, and then as me and Bob during the day cover the Reed case. So I think that's a great plan. I think,
and Jay, like you were saying, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the mics in this are not good. We're not getting good sound. The video is awful. We can't even see witnesses. It's like we're watching from our front porch, like our neighbor, like a half a mile down the road speaking. It's not optimal. Additionally, a lot of it's going to be duplicative of Lori. So I think that your concept of having the girls kind of narrow down what happened during the day, pick out the juiciest stuff, give us a nice, hey, what's up, Shiloh? Thanks for popping in. But having them give kind of primers on what happened, Allie and Shan's having fascinating conversations about it, and then us covering what is sure to be just an absolute insane trial. It's like I was talking to Allison last night, and Jay, I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch any of that Idaho 4 hearing. That was an evening hearing last night. It was very, very interesting. We're actually going to cover that tonight, but in conjunction with Delphi, because the reason it was so interesting is that the argument was being made about the thing that I'm always saying, which is that the state always gets their narrative out through a PCA, and it just sits and percolates out there in the public for sometimes for years, and it goes unchecked by the defense. And that's just been the way that it's been forever. And it's prejudicial. It's not fair. It's unequitable. I've been saying that ever since I got sworn in as a lawyer and became a defense attorney. I'm like, this is bullshit. Why are they getting to say that? Because none of that's been checked. None of it's been vetted. Those are just, it's their theory and nothing more. So I'm always pounding on this. And what had happened is they went and did a poll. Okay. They had a company do a poll, and they used the facts that were just contained within that PCA. Right. And those were what were in the questions. The judge at first blush last week, like, lost his shit. Or I don't know, maybe it was earlier this week, whatever day it was. I was traveling. So, but he like lost his shit when he saw these questions. Last night, you know, he had calmed down quite a bit. But it's fascinating because the two cases where the defense, for the first time in my memory, came forward with their theories of defense and put them out for the public to consume are Delphi and Karen Reed. And you've seen the result of that. The result of that has created absolute toxicity online. It's created two hardline camps of innocence or guilt. Now, both of those sides are wrong. Both sides need to wait to trial. None of us can know. Both sides are theories in terms of the defense and the state. All they've done is try to even the playing field. So I loved that hearing last night. That was validating everything that I'm always saying about the state getting their theory of a case out way ahead of time and allowing that to be the only, because it creates prejudice. When you only hear one side of the story, Jay, if you and I were in an argument and you went out and you said blah, 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 and I didn't respond, everyone would assume that what you were saying was true. Just like anytime you get one side of a situation and one person's view of it, obviously
I can pause this. Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I think that am I super blurry, y'all?
You're a little blurry. You're a little bit. Is it your normal camera? Is your input? Is it?
Yeah, no, dude, it's my internet. I'm sure. Let me see. Let me see what network I'm on. God, my internet sucks, dude. I have to start going, like, I have to use Ethernet is what I have to do. Let me see which of my things I'm on.
While Bob checks that, you know, I will. What Bob was saying was why I was kind of hesitant to cover Karen Reed myself, just because of the toxicity that I see there. But I was thinking the group that we have, Bob, and the mods that we have, like, I shouldn't have been worried. We can handle it. We're not going. It's not going to be like a shit show, like you know. So I shouldn't.
We'll be fine, dude, and our people will be fine. And it's going to be a, you know, it's weird to say a fun case when you're dealing with a death, obviously, but in terms of just the trial itself, it's going to be very interesting. We have two very different theories of this case. I think it's incumbent upon us to cover it because it's one of those cases with it's a true whodunit, and both sides are going to be putting forth their theories where they firmly believe that their theory is the truth. You know, and they're going to be putting on receipts in order to try to prove their theories. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a banger, man.
And real quick before I hit the live here, it is MJ's birthday. Wonderful mod, MJ. She is the best. MJ, happy birthday. We hope you have a great one.
Happy birthday, MJ. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm going to try to block some devices from.
Also, if you have check how many tabs. If you have a lot of tabs, sometimes that helps. If you close some tabs.
Yeah, let me see what I got going on.
Although the state is here and present, Mr. Wood was conducting examination of a witness Mr. Wood, is the state ready to proceed this morning?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. I'll also note the defense is present. Counsel.
Volume booster engaged. Let me know if you guys need me to make it louder.
And the defendant. The court also notes the jurors are all properly seated and all 18 jurors have returned. The court's also confirmed that the jurors each completed their affirmation this morning regarding not looking into the case during the break. And so we appreciate you following that admonishment as well. One other matter I just wanted to bring up before we got started with additional evidence is the court's live streaming this hearing in this trial. There is a, I heard there were some complaints that the audio maybe wasn't coming through very well on that. I'd asked the attorneys if they could to talk right at the mics. Of course, that helps as well with our court reporter making the record. In addition, the live stream comes directly through the court's official channel. That can be somewhat difficult to find if you go to the Idaho Supreme Court website. However, there is a website on Ada County about this trial, and if you just Google the term Ada County Daybell trial, there's an easy link to find for the court's official live stream, and that's the most direct signal. So for those that are observing the trial online, if you're having any issues with audio or quality of the signal, perhaps you could go to that direct
Guys, I just boosted it even more. Is that better, guys, with the audio?
signal, which is
Oh shit, OJ Simpson died?
Yeah, I see that.
Wow. Thanks for that update, Todd.
We had
Oh, did he get a deathbed confession? Did we get that? Did he have the decency to do that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll have the witness recalled then if you're ready to proceed with additional testimony.
Thank you.
So let's see. Let me see what's up with the camera.
You seem better now. I mean, let me see if I'll make you. Still a little bit.
Let me see. Video resolution, auto. Turn the mirror off.
Detective Hermosillo is
Did it get any better?
today. I'll remind you are still under oath for your testimony.
Is it still pretty shitty?
It's still a little pixelated, but it's not. I think it's definitely better. It's better.
I'm trying to kick things because we have the boosters all over the house. So I'm trying to kick them like various things off the booster.
Good morning, Detective. Detective, when we finished off yesterday, we were discussing what you had found or what you had observed at a burial site, and just for purposes of the jury, what site were you at when you found the body you were speaking of yesterday?
We were at the site that we deemed JJ's burial site.
And where, Your Honor, if I could be given State's Exhibit 10A. And if I may publish that?
Yes, it's admitted, correct?
Yes.
Very well.
Detective, if you could, just for purposes of clarification, with a pointer, point out the location you were speaking of.
It's the burial site on the other side of this pond, just underneath this tree.
Okay. Now, you call it a pond. When you were out there on June 9th, was there water in it?
No, there wasn't.
And again, just to clarify, when we had left off your testimony yesterday, is it correct that what you observed was what appeared to be a small body wrapped up in a black plastic bag.
That's correct.
All right, again, folks, just real quick, there are going to be some tough details here. If you need to take a break, take care of your mental health.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibits 10B through 10M.
Well, they pass this up again. If you weren't here yesterday, by the way, folks, no trial tomorrow. There is no trial. And also, Bob, you were saying you might go live tonight, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to go live on Delphi tonight, but we're also going to be covering that. We're going to be covering that Idaho 4 thing in conjunction with it, because it plays in to what we've been trying to do for the past 5 months on our channel with respect to Delphi. You know, because on Delphi I've been very defense bar oriented. You know, where with cases that we're covering, I'm going to be objective, but when I see that the Constitution's being shit upon, I'm going to have a voice about it. So, and I think that will be instructive for people. So, yeah, we're going to go live. I'm not sure what time yet.
And tomorrow, folks, even though there's no trial, I will be going live with Katie Bogenschutz and Jared Ross to discuss Harvey Adelson and whether he will be arrested and charged. So 10 a.m. tomorrow, if you guys are around, love to have you join us. Yeah, I activated it, guys, but right now there's nothing going on because they're handing in the evidence. I'll make it louder when it comes back on if it's not loud enough, but I think once they start talking, it will be loud enough.
Oh, and folks, keep an eye on the Mew trial for us, would you?
Oh yeah, if the Mew trial comes in, let us know. We will go to that verdict. All right, I'll make my mic lower, guys. They're saying because the court, when we talk, we're so loud compared to the court. So I'll make my mic lower.
Jacob, do you recognize State's Exhibits 10B through 10M?
Yes.
What do they purport to be?
Photographs. There's a photograph of the west side of the defendant Daybell's residence, and photographs of the backyard.
And do you know when these photographs were taken?
On June 9th, 2020.
Were you the photographer?
No,
But you were on the property that day.
that's correct.
And were you able to observe each of the areas that are photographed in these exhibits?
Yes.
You saw them with your own eyes?
Yes.
And are these true and accurate representations of what you observed on June 9th, 2020?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for admission of State's Exhibits 10B through 10M.
Any objection? Judge, just into the microphone, please, Mr. Private.
I'm sorry, Judge. Judge, just one here on 10B if I could. Otherwise, I'm fine with the rest of the exhibits.
Okay, so let's do that then. So 10C through 10M have been offered or admitted in this priority keyboard there in 10B.
And officer, you're looking at 10B, is that right?
Yes.
For now.
Yes.
And the vehicle that's parked in 10B, is that the vehicle that was the position of the vehicle at the time that you testified about Mr. Daybell?
That's not the vehicle that Mr. Daybell was in. No.
Do you know what vehicle that is?
The driveway looks like a Subaru.
Okay, is that the driveway that you're making reference to?
That's correct.
So in other words, somebody else's vehicle is there. We don't know whose vehicle that is.
It's not the one that Mr. Daybell was in.
But you don't know whose vehicle it is.
I don't know whose vehicle that is.
You don't know when the vehicle was put there.
No, sir.
You don't know who the owner of the vehicle is.
That's correct.
I would object, Judge, on foundation.
All right, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, said you don't know whose vehicle that is, correct?
Correct.
You were still there that day. Okay. Do you recognize this as Mr. Daybell's residence?
Yes, I do.
And this is a true and accurate representation of Mr. Daybell's residence.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I think significant or sufficient foundation has been laid.
All right, Judge, I just make a record that I'm objecting also on the basis of relevance. It looks like it's a picture of a vehicle in the driveway.
Okay, well, the picture shows many things, including a vehicle. I'll allow the state to have this admitted, and sufficient foundation's been established, so 10B is admitted as well as the others.
Detective, if you will, or Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 10B?
That is the west side of the Daybell residence. When I testified earlier to coming out and standing in the lawn area, that's not the vehicle that Mr. Daybell was in, but it was similarly parked that way, backed in. And that's the driveway he was sitting in when I was observing him look over his right shoulder toward the pond area.
Detective, do you have the pointer with you? Can you point to where you were standing when you initially observed Mr. Daybell's behavior?
I was standing here in this area.
And then you said that you positioned yourself so that you could see what you thought he was looking at.
That's correct.
Where did you go then?
I stood more towards the driveway area. The vehicle that Mr. Daybell was in was up further this way. It wasn't backed in as far as this vehicle in the photograph.
And just to clarify, is that when you looked back and saw the activity under what became the first burial site?
Well, I was looking forward at that time. I was facing this direction. And I aligned myself with Mr. Daybell, who was up here more, and he was looking towards this area here.
Well, I'm excited, Jay.
The first burial site where you're
We're gonna get to hear the they're searching. They're searching.
Oh,
The phone call with him and Lori when he's driving in the car, driving away from the scene.
like a genius as always.
Yeah.
After he has clearly stared at where they're buried, showing the officers where to look, then he's like, "I'm gonna peel out of here."
Yeah,
It should
on
be,
the phone with Lori.
shouldn't.
They're searching. They're searching.
Well,
Yeah.
what a
So
moron.
everyone get prepared for that. It's gonna be great.
from that location.
Yes, it's the tree I spoke about earlier. This is the tree where JJ was buried underneath. This right here is the pond. You can see just a little bit more taller shrubs around the top of the pond area. But this is the tree that JJ was buried underneath.
So is it fair to say that even from the front or the middle of Mr. Daybell's front yard, you can see that location easily?
That's correct.
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 10C?
When I testified, I was tasked with sifting through the fire pit. This is what we deemed the fire pit. It had burnt tree limbs. There was various little pieces of trash. It was in the middle of round cinder blocks. So that's what we deemed the fire pit as.
And the way it appears in that image, that's the way you found it that day?
Correct. It was that morning, yes.
And what do you observe in States Exhibit 10B?
This is just north of the driveway that Mr. Daybell is sitting in, looking in the same direction. So we're standing on the west side looking east. And that is the tree. And then here's the pond area right here.
Detective, I'm going to put up States Exhibit 10A again, and if you can point to the approximate location of where this picture was taken from.
So that last photograph was taken from this area right here.
And so it's fair to say from that location, you can easily see aerial site number 1.
Judge, I would object at this point. There's been some leading questions. Continues.
I'll sustain that last question, Ziggy.
From that perspective, what were you able to observe?
Burial site number 1, JJ's burial site.
Was it difficult for you to observe it from that location?
The actual grave site on the ground, yes, from that location, but where the tree and the pond are, no, it wasn't difficult.
Detective, what did you observe in States Exhibit 10E?
So when I testified earlier about the difference in length of grass and shrubs in that 6x6 section that was marked off next to the pond, this is what I'm referring to. If you look close, you can see there's smaller grass and dirt protruding right here. This is probably a little bit difficult to see. There's probably a better photograph. But this is longer shrubs through here, and then in here was like the length of sod and some dirt where there was nothing growing.
And when yesterday you testified being called over to burial site 1, is that what it looked like when you got over there?
That's correct.
Detective, can you describe to the jury what you saw in States Exhibit 10F?
So when I spoke about ERT removing the topsoil and the top level of shrubs, this is what I was speaking about. And you can start to see the 3 large white rocks I was talking about earlier starting to come through the dirt.
You testified yesterday about a smell. Was this the same time that you began to smell what you described yesterday?
Yes, as soon as they removed this and the topsoil, that's when I instantly can smell the smell of a decomposing body.
Detective, can you tell the jury what you saw in States Exhibit 10? Or I'm sorry, 10G.
So as the ERT team methodically removed the soil around the white rocks and dug down just a little bit deeper, this is what we saw. You can start to see there was a smaller rock, but the 3 large white rocks started to show through clearly. When I testified that there was thin wood paneling underneath the white rocks, you can start to see the edge of that piece of wood paneling underneath the rocks. We also noticed that there were roots cut that the ERT team didn't cut. They were already pre-cut. Some of the roots are fairly thick, so that was something we observed as well in that burial site.
Detective, can you describe for the jury what you saw in States Exhibit 10H?
After the ERT team removed the white rocks, this is the two pieces of wood paneling that were underneath.
What did you observe in States Exhibit 10I?
I spoke earlier about the distinction in soil. Some of the soil looked wet or moist, some of it looked dry. Excuse me. What you're looking at here is, once we remove the wood paneling, this is what was underneath, and you can start to see the distinction through here of the wet soil. And up here is just the dry soil. So the rocks and the paneling were all through here. So that was the other thing that we observed. And as we took the paneling off, the odor began to become a lot stronger. So we knew we were at the right spot.
Your Honor, I apologize for any delay. I wonder if we could just have a very brief sidebar regarding the removal. All right.
Sidebar, folks. Hope the volume is better. It's loud on my end. I hope you guys can hear it. What about the court? Can you hear the court okay? Guys, if the court is still good, I honestly don't. I'm almost at 100% of the volume booster. If it's the court is still low, I don't know what to tell you guys. It's just the best we can do here. At least you can't hear me banging on the keyboard because I mute myself now. Chad is sitting to the table to the right in the top left screen, table to the right with the white shirt. Good morning, Suzanne. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Top left screen.
Is that better? I moved the thing closer, the booster.
What do you mean?
I moved my Wi-Fi.
Oh, you. Let me see. Yeah, you're crystal clear now.
Oh, good. Cool. Shoo!
Detective, can you explain to the jury what you observed in States Exhibit 10J?
So once we started removing the wet soil, and I testified earlier to a black round object protruding through the dirt, this is what we started to see. It appeared to be like tight wrapped black plastic. It wasn't very too far underneath. It's fairly shallow, but that's what we started to see. And I talked about what appeared to be the crown of the human head.
Can you describe what you saw? It's exhibit 10K.
So once that appeared, the ERT team leader Steve Daniels used a small, sharp instrument. And I testified that he made a slit through the black plastic. You can see the black plastic kind of peeled away on the top of the head. And then I testified there was a white piece of plastic underneath. And this is the white piece of plastic here. He made a slit in the white plastic. And when he did that, you can see what appeared to be brown human hair. Some of the hair kind of came out with the sharp instrument, and that's the hair you can see on top of the white plastic. But that's what we're looking at.
Roger, what you observed in states exhibit 10L.
Once the ERT team continued excavating, they removed all the soil on top of this small body that was wrapped in completely black plastic. I testified that it appeared to take the shape of the small body in black plastic. And this is what we saw here. It's probably a 4x2 grave, and I'm guessing at those measurements. But it started to take the shape of a small body, and then it had different pieces of duct tape throughout the black plastic on top.
What did you observe in states exhibit 10M?
Once we lifted JJ out of the ground, there was still wet soil underneath where he was laying. And that's body decomposition. The body had begun to break down. So that's what the wet soil is through here. Again, you can see the roots that were cut to be able to put him in this location.
Detective, once that body was recovered, what did you do? And to clarify that question, once that body was taken out of the ground, what did you do?
I assisted the coroner and a few other officers in placing JJ in a body bag, a black body bag. The coroner locked the body bag for evidence. We then put it in the back of the coroner's vehicle. The coroner and a Fremont County deputy drove the vehicle up to the morgue, and myself and Lieutenant Rockwell followed behind that vehicle. Once we were at the morgue, JJ was placed in the morgue. And then we returned back to the Daybell residence.
Do you recall who the Fremont County coroner was?
Brenda Dye.
And do you recall what other officers traveled with you to the hospital?
In my vehicle was just Lieutenant Ron Ball. With the coroner, Brenda Dye, I believe it was Detective Kaiman.
And just for clarification, you had said this already, I apologize, but what hospital did you take them to?
Madison Memorial Hospital
And where is that located?
in the city of Rexburg.
Once you finished that task, what was the next step for your investigation?
We returned back to the Daybell residence. As we got there, we were told that they had possibly
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. There's some hearsay.
I'll ask another question. Without telling the jury what anyone told you, what did you do when you got back to the residence?
we assisted in a second burial site.
And when you got back to the residence, did you observe another burial site being looked at?
I did.
Where was that located?
So through the course of our investigation, we learned that the Daybell family had deemed a section of the backyard as what they referred to as a pet cemetery. And we knew through talking to family members that the pet cemetery had a little black dog statue next to a post that kind of signified where the pet cemetery was. And so when I returned back from dropping JJ off at the morgue, I observed ERT digging in the pet cemetery area.
And did you aid in that excavation?
I did.
What did you personally do?
ERT began taking off top layers of soil in this specific area in the pet cemetery. Once they began to again see wet soil start to protrude through the dry soil, they slowed down and we got on our hands and knees and began excavating that by hand.
And by hand, did you use tools to do that?
We did. They had small tools that we could use, trowels, like paintbrushes, things of that nature.
Approximately what time of day was this?
Say it was afternoon.
And approximately how many people were there with you using hand tools?
There was only a few of us at a time that could work because of the area, but also because of the smell. We had to take turns digging because we were on our hands and knees and the smell was so bad that you could only work for a few minutes before somebody else had to take turns, get on their hands and knees and start digging by hand.
And you said the smell, what did it smell like?
Decomposing body.
How long did you aid in that excavation using the hand tools?
Hours, probably hours.
And did you find anything?
We did. We ended up digging down and started to uncover burnt pieces of flesh, charred bone, fatty tissue, just, and I apologize for the lack of better words, but globs of burnt flesh starting to protrude through the dirt.
And once you found that, how long did you keep working that site that day?
We worked probably until probably 4-ish in the afternoon.
And you mentioned ERT, were they working there alongside you?
They were. There was also other areas being excavated as well, the fire pit still. So everybody was kind of tasked with something different at that point. And once we started getting down a little bit more in Tylee's burial site, we assumed it was Tylee, we could start to see the top of what appeared to be something plastic and green. And at that point, the ERT team leader, Steve Daniels, decided we were done for the evening.
When you were done for the evening, what happened?
We had Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Madison County Fire Department, bring in 2 large light trucks to illuminate the crime scene. The crime scene was taped off. We had officers from Rexburg City Police, deputies from Fremont County Sheriff's Office that remained on scene all night long, walking the perimeter to make sure that the scene wasn't compromised. And it was well illuminated.
And did you return the next day?
Yes, we did.
And when you returned the next day, who else returned?
Everybody that was there the previous day.
So ERT came back
That's correct, yes.
and other members of the FBI,
Yes,
Fremont County officers,
yes.
Rexburg police officers.
Correct.
And I believe you testified earlier that there were some attorney general investigators there as well.
Yes,
And they were all there that second day.
that's correct.
Approximately what time did you arrive that second day?
We started fairly early. It was approximately 7 in the morning.
And what did you start doing when you got there on the second day?
I went back to Tylee's burial site. We had put up canopies to keep sunlight and wind. There was media, helicopters flying overhead, so we wanted to keep the scene from being compromised as much as we possibly could. And at that point, we got back down on our hands and knees and began digging again with those same little tools to get down to see what exactly we were going to take out of the ground at that point.
And so and then what happened next? Did you continue to do that work?
Like I said, we would take turns digging because the smell was so bad. And we would just keep excavating slowly around this green object that started to come through the dirt the first day. So it started to take a shape, a roundish shape, when we began digging down and methodically removing dirt. And at that point, we could start to see what appeared to be the shape of a green melted bucket that appeared to have the remains of, we assume, were Tylee that were charred and burned inside it.
And were you there for the excavation of that bucket?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Once we got down to what we thought was the bottom of the disformed bucket, we observed part of a human skull underneath the bucket. There was some teeth that we ended up excavating from underneath. At that point, the goal was to lift that out of the ground. And so there was we made kind of a little hole around it to try to get underneath. So we put tarps out. Like I said, the goal was to try to lift it completely out without manipulating it in any way. But when we tried to do that, when we lifted it, it all broke apart because there was nothing holding it together. So at that point, we had to go back in and remove all the pieces of the charred flesh and burnt bone and organs and pieces of tile that put onto the tarp.
And while you were doing that, you talked about the smell. Was that still present?
Yes, very much so. Strong odor, yes.
Were you able to observe the lack of a better word, total removal of that green bucket and its contents from that excavation site?
We were able to lift everything out at that point. We put it on the blue tarp. There were photographs taken, measurements taken by ERT. Once that was completed, we dug down even further to make sure we didn't miss anything. Once we figured out everything was out of the ground, that tarp and those and Tyler's remains were then put into a body bag in the corner, again, lock the body bag for evidence purposes. And Tyler was also transported to the morgue.
And did you follow along when Tyler was transferred to the morgue like you did with JJ?
We did. We followed in the same manner. Myself and Lieutenant Ball. Once Tyler was placed in the morgue, we returned back to the Daybell residence.
Your Honor, I'm going to be asked that the witness be handed State's Exhibits 11A through 11G.
Previously reviewed these and I would object to admission of these as exhibits.
All right, exhibits 11A through 11G are admitted without objection. This time, as we get into this evidence, I'm going to announce that because of the graphic nature of some of this evidence, I'm not going to be showing this on the court's live stream, nor to the general public in the courtroom. The jurors will be viewing the evidence as well as the parties are permitted to see that. In addition, the court will provide an opportunity for any victims that wish to see the evidence in a private setting to view it as it's now been admitted into the record. But we made arrangements to not display this to the general public. And so, Mr. Wood, with these exhibits, that's how we'll proceed. And we will not include that on the live stream, but you can discuss it on the record in open public with the witness.
Detective, can you review that exhibit, those exhibits? And Your Honor, I understand these are already admitted. I am still ask a few foundational questions just to establish knowledge.
Very well.
For the record. Detective, what does State's Exhibit 11 report to be? And its subparts?
photograph of pet cemetery and photographs of Tylee as we took her out of the ground in her burial site.
And were these photographs taken on June 9 and 10?
That's correct, yes.
And were you on the scene that day when those photographs were taken?
Yes,
Are they true and accurate representations of what you saw?
yes.
Your Honor, those exhibits having been admitted, I'd ask to publish.
Hopefully, I'm not too loud compared to the courtroom. But while they publish the jury,
Detective, before I publish that, I'm going to place State's Exhibit 10A up again.
Foiled. You were foiled.
I was just going to say,
And can you point to the general location?
just real quick, I was just going to say, I had Mac on, and I was like, Mac, how do you, for folks who don't know, Cheryl Mac McCullum in the Law Enforcement Hall of Fame, just an awesome person. But I was like, how do law enforcement people have to testify about this over and over? How do they do it with this sensitive material? And she's like, they feel it's like their duty for these victims to tell their story. Like, because like Detective Hermosillo, how many times has he had to go over these awful details? But that's kind of what she said. Is like, you have to, you're doing this for them. You're doing for them to get justice. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Of what you've described as the pet cemetery.
Right here.
So can you have on the record and explain where he's pointing?
Yes, Detective, will you explain where you're pointing?
It's just east of this shop area and just north of the fire pit. So it's right through here.
And Your Honor, I do think that the state's first picture under State's Exhibit 11 is okay for public consumption.
It is. I just wanted to make sure our system was working as well, that Exhibit 11A is fine.
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 11A?
This is where we began excavating briefly. As you can see in this photograph, there's a small black dog statue next to the post. So that's where we had learned this was the pet cemetery area through talking to family members. And then there's just some tarps laid out for some of the soil. You can see in the back the markers that had been distinguished and laid out by ERT for the fire pit area that I had talked about earlier.
And Your Honor, I think at this point it's appropriate to turn to public access.
I agree.
Excuse me.
Detective, Your Honor, I'm at a bit of I have no idea if this is, I can't see if this, well, I'll ask, Detective, can you see that image in your monitor?
Yes,
Can you see most of it?
yes.
Can you describe for the jury what's been marked as State's Exhibit 11B? What did you observe there?
Can I see? Is there a way I can use the pointer?
I have a suggestion also, Mr. Wood, just because I understand what you're doing to try to line that up since you can't see the monitor. If you want to set a notepad or something on there and get it oriented, then you could set on top of that just so that it's lined up.
And if I could have the screen for 1 moment, thank you. You remember that suggestion? Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 11B?
It's hard to describe without wonder, but I'll do my best. In the middle of that photograph, you can start to see the different color and the changes in the soil from dry to a wet, moist dirt. You can start to see to the left just a little bit of that area. You can see the white piece sticking out and it's burnt on top, and that's charred bone that's starting to stick out, and all the little pieces next to it are pieces of burnt flesh, tissue. What we later determined were organs that were all kind of, that's the top of what was inside the bucket. So that's what we first started to see when we started to excavate.
And at this point, were you still using the hand tools?
Yes.
You explain for the jury what you observed in State's Exhibit 11C.
So as we started to excavate down further, some of the top of the mass of burnt flesh wasn't really attached to anything. And so when we would start to dig away towards the sides, it would kind of come apart. It wasn't part of that original mass. And so what you're looking at on this blue tarp is burnt flesh still attached to some bone. The upper left part of that that section that you're looking at is part of the hip bone that still has burnt flesh attached to it, and dirt and just fatty burnt tissue.
You described for the jury what you observed in State's Exhibit 11D.
So when I talked about it started to take a roundish shape, this is what I'm referring to. And we dug around the sides of it, trying to get to the bottom, because like I said, the goal was to get underneath, have 3 or 4 guys in there and just lift it onto the tarp. So that's what you're looking at in this photograph, is just the burnt flesh. It's still just kind of inside that.
And Judge, could we approach for a sidebar, please?
Yes.
Man, in addition to the law enforcement, I'm just thinking about this jury that will like never be the same again after seeing these. Like, you can't ever get that out of your head.
No, it's brutal. It's brutal. You know, in cases that we've handled, you know, those images of the victims are seared in my brain like forever. It's been,
I bet,
it's been like 11 years since we got the Garcia case, man. And like, I can just picture all of the crime scene photos still to this day, like vividly. And I'm not good with stuff like that. You know, like I'm not, I can't handle the sight of blood. It's just something I can't do. So, yeah, man, it's rough. Like, we keep putting it in the chat, y'all. If you guys need to take a break during this, you know, we're not going anywhere. You know, take care of yourselves mentally, because this stuff is tough, especially if you have a soul. You know, if you have compassion, it can be real tough to sit through this type of stuff. So, you know, just make sure that you're taking care of yourselves out there. Yeah, and Jay, thanks to Jay, I was able to. I've got the Mew courtroom up. So if that happened, and Todd's keeping an eye on it for us as well. If that jury comes back, we'll do a quick pivot.
How long do you think they're going to take, Bob? What's your guess?
I don't know, man. It's tough. It's a tough case. It really is. You know, I mean, like when you talk about jury deliberations, this is what it's all about. You know, I imagine that there are.
Just to the right.
I pause it. Go ahead.
I imagine that there's people that are on both sides of this thing, you know, because it's really like I was talking about yesterday. It depends on your age, your gender, your life experiences in terms of like whether or not, because it's really a reasonable analysis. Were his actions reasonable in light of what was going on around him? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not like a clear cut defined like legal question. It's a factual question, and everybody, I would not be surprised if it came back hung, or if it's close, you know, if there's a lot on the innocent side. I wouldn't be surprised if they come back with one of the lesser included. So you know what I mean? Like I would be stunned if they came back with first degree or second degree intentional homicide. I would not at all be stunned if they came back with the reckless homicides, and I wouldn't be stunned if he's acquitted or if it's hung. You know, it's tough. I'd love to be a fly on the wall hearing that.
Well, again, folks, we will pivot over if that comes in. We will pivot over to that.
Side of that, the green bucket. There were teeth there in the dirt as well. But that's what you're looking at, just a close up of the bottom of it.
Detective, what can you explain for the jury what you observed in State's Exhibit 11F?
So once we removed that mass and put it on the blue tarp, there was still some wet soil underneath. So we dug down even further to make sure that we had excavated everything we needed. And so what you're looking at, you can see the tarps in the background we had put up. You can see some of the hand tools that we used just to the right of that hole. But that's what you're looking at, is just after we got that mass out, the wet soil.
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 11G?
So these were part of a tiley that kind of broke apart when we tried to lift it out of the ground. There's pieces of charred bone. There's parts of a skull on the bottom left, covered in dirt, and they're still burnt, rotting flesh still attached to the bone. So that's what you're looking at that one. These were the pieces that broke off.
Detective, I believe you testified that you assisted in transferring those remains to Madison County to the hospital, correct?
Correct, I followed behind the corner.
Was Lieutenant Ball with you again?
He was.
Once you got up to the hospital, what did you do?
We observed the Fremont County coroner, Brenda Dye, transfer Tylee's remains into the morgue. The morgue was unlocked, but there was evidence they put up. And at that point, myself and Lieutenant Ball went back to the defendant Daybell's residence.
And what did you do when you got back there?
We assisted and made sure there were no other burial sites or anything that the ERT team needed assistance with. At that point, we decided that we were going to take JJ and Tylee to the Ada County Coroner's Office to have an autopsy performed. So roughly 4 in the afternoon on June 10th, 2020, it was decided that we were going to follow the county coroner with the remains of JJ and Tylee to the Ada County Coroner's Office for an autopsy the next morning.
And when did you arrive in Ada County, approximately?
Approximately 8 or 9 in the evening on June 10th.
And what did you do once you got there?
We went directly to the coroner's office, and JJ and Tylee were dropped off, and the coroner's office took custody of both JJ and Tylee.
So that was later in the evening.
Correct.
And was an autopsy performed that night?
No.
When was the autopsy?
The
Judge, I'm gonna object. There needs to be some foundation.
Overruled, if you know, you can answer.
The autopsy was performed June 11th, early morning hours.
Well, that was the next day.
Correct.
And were you present for that?
Yes, I was.
And where did that autopsy take place?
At the Ada County Coroner's Office.
So when you arrived at the coroner's office, what did you do first?
Initially, when we arrived, we had a little debrief with the medical examiner, Garth Warren. He told us what he expected.
Judge, objection.
Grounds,
Hearsay?
same.
You met with Dr. Ward.
Correct.
What was the purpose of that meeting?
To debrief us on what to expect that morning.
What did you do next?
We went to the room where the autopsy was performed. Put the sanitary booties on our shoes, signed in on a whiteboard with our name and cell phone numbers. So he had a record of everybody that was in the room. And at that point, we stood back against the wall and observed the autopsy.
Now, as a detective, you don't perform an autopsy, correct?
Correct.
But you were able to see it take place.
That's correct.
And what did you observe happening during that autopsy?
One of his team members brought out the body bag. And I recognized it to be the same body bag that we took from defendant Daybell's backyard that day because it still had dirt on it. It still had the same lock. And at that point, they opened the body bag and revealed the same black plastic and small body that appeared to be in the black plastic.
And then what did you observe?
Dr. Warren and his team cut down the middle of the black plastic to open up what was inside. At that time, I observed a small child with duct tape on his head from his chin to his forehead area, tightly wrapped around his head. He had red pajama pants on, red pajama shirt. He had his arms folded this way across his body. And there was duct tape from elbow all the way around to his other elbow. He had his ankles also bound with duct tape. He was still wearing his nighttime pull-up diaper. He had black socks with the word Skechers in orange. I could tell that he was going through various states of decomposition based on his skin color.
Judge, I'm going to object.
Grounds.
He doesn't have the experience to make a determination about the levels of decomposition. He's speculating.
I'll sustain the objection and strike the final part of the answer about decomposition, Mr. Wilkie.
All right. Detective, what did the body's skin look like?
The skin was sloughing. It appeared to be bluish green, black, yellow. And through my training experience, going through and handling different dead bodies at different stages of decomposition, that's what I read.
Judge, I'm going to object again. There's been no foundation for him to make that sort of medical assessment. He's not a medical doctor.
Your Honor, my argument would be that's not a medical assessment. It is on his training experience.
I'll overrule the objection. If you'd like to cross further, you'll have a chance, Mr. Pryor. The objection is overruled. The foundation laid in the previous response.
Detective, once this the body was taken out of the bag and you made the observations that you've just described, what happened next?
Dr. Warren and his team then cut the white plastic that was wrapped around his head and duct taped. They cut down the middle to reveal what was underneath. At that point, I observed another piece of duct tape stretched from JJ's jawline to jawline over his mouth. He also cut the several layers of duct tape from his arms, and it revealed some more duct tape that had his wrist bound underneath all those layers of duct tape. He then took his bottom pajamas off and shirt, and it also revealed the nighttime pull-up diaper he was still wearing.
Now, Detective, you spoke about the duct tape and bag over the head, correct?
Correct.
And you've been referring to this as JJ.
Yes.
Until that duct tape and bag were removed, though, were you able to identify him as JJ?
No. Once they removed the duct tape in the bag, through looking at all the photographs for the last 8 months of JJ, I recognized him to be the same little boy laying on that table as JJ Vallow. He had the same hairstyle, shorter on the sides, longer on top. At that point, I recognized him as JJ.
Once the clothing was removed, what did you observe happened next?
Dr. Warren pointed out some bruising on his arms, on his ankles, on his chest.
Oh, I see. Kim Hello Spring says there's a verdict. Bob, do you see? Is there this? Do we got a verdict?
Oh boy, it got blurry. So let me see. I've got an eye on it. There's definitely some kind of well, there's movement. I don't know if the question or like it's just a blurry picture right now.
All right, I'll keep it. I'll have it up just in case.
He also pointed out some
Yeah, pull it
scratch
up in
marks
case you
on
need to
the left
pivot.
side of his neck, just under the duct tape. At that point, Dr. Warren and his team performed the autopsy.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be shown on State's Exhibits 12A through 12E.
A through B.
E.
B, thank you.
Detective, can you review those exhibits? Let me know when you've had a chance to.
Yeah.
Do you recognize State's Exhibits 12A through E?
Yes,
What do they purport to be?
J.J. Vallow laying on the table after they opened the black plastic.
And were you present when those pictures were taken?
Yes,
You were in the same room?
Correct.
Are those true and accurate representations of what you observed that day?
yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that State's Exhibits 12A through E entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Very well. 12A through E are admitted. All of these are graphic in nature, will not be published or shown on the court's live feed or to the public in the courtroom. They'll be published to the jurors, however conditions would.
Thank you. Detective, can you describe to the jury what?
I'm just real quick. I'm just guys. I see that they have the seal up, but I don't see anything about a verdict yet. But I'm looking at the chat, and someone's like, "Wait, this isn't the Chad Daybell trial."
Oh, in Law and Crime?
In the Nicole Matt in the other case.
You
Oh,
observed
yeah.
State's
In the
Exhibit
Law and
12A.
Crime chat with the
Yeah.
geniuses? Yeah.
Once they removed the black plastic that J.J. Vallow was in, this is the first thing you saw. You can see on the white plastic on top of his head, that's the slit that was made when his head was sticking out of the ground. And you can see the duct tape I testified to wrapped around his entire face. His red pajamas are still soaked with body decomposition. The level of duct tape on his arms is what really caught my attention. And he still has he has a white and blue child blanket wrapped around him.
Can you describe to the jury what you observed in State's Exhibit 12B?
This is JJ's legs, his bottom half. He has his red pajama pants on still. His ankles, like I testified, are wrapped with duct tape. Those are his black Skechers socks that he had on. It's hard to see there too, but his legs and body are also soaked with decomposition.
Can you describe to the jury what you saw in State's Exhibit 12C?
When I spoke earlier that Dr. Warren cut down the white plastic and the duct tape that was covering his head, this is what we saw. You can see the other layer of duct tape around his mouth that went from jawline to jawline. You can see his hair, brown hair, still was matted down to his head. Wet, soaked with body decomposition. But at that point, I was able to still recognize him as J.J. Vallow.
You observe in 12D.
That's the white bag that was covering his head. That looks like blood in the bag. It's actually body decomposition, just breaking down. It appeared to be a normal trash bag. It had a red drawstring. And you can see, if you look close, it had the waffle style pattern. The expandable type trash bag. There's still pieces of duct tape that are attached. That's what that photograph depicts.
Describe the material on 12D.
That's just another photo of JJ. The tape is starting to lose its stickiness because of the way the body is. It's just a different photo or a different angle of JJ's face.
So can I have a sidebar, council? Earlier than normal.
Sidebar.
Bit earlier than normal, but we are going to take a mid-morning recess at this time. We'll reconvene here about slightly before 10:30 to get started with additional testimony.
All rise, please.
Did he just say 10:30 off? There's like a half-hour break right now.
Is that what he said?
Started with additional testimony. Slightly before 10:30 to get started with additional testimony.
All rise, please.
What did he say?
Oh, 10:30. Good thing they have mics that are literally potatoes, but yeah, 10:30. They're taking a half-hour break.
But wait, they're supposed to take a lunch, right?
Yeah, but that's at like 2 our time, or that's right now it's what it's 10:30. So they break till 10:30 and then they take a lunch at 12, I guess, right?
Yeah. What should we do?
I don't know.
That's a long ass break, bro.
I was hoping we get a verdict because there's definitely movement, but
yeah, I'm watching it. I've seen a couple people walk in front of the camera. So I don't know.
Well, if you want, I could show you guys something while we're waiting. Me and Shannon, I think you'll like this, Bob. Me and Shannon, folks, if you're our patron or our a Super Bowl on YouTube, we're doing a members only of this body cam footage, and I want to give you guys a little preview of it. Bob, I think you're gonna love it. No one dies in this body cam. No one but it's just insane. And this guy who gets like arrested, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you guys a little teaser for
teasers
Sunday at 8 p.m. if you're a patron. I already sent out the link. It's so good. You're gonna love this guy, Bob. I know it. Let me find my playlist. Some of you folks may have seen this body cam already. It is wild. All right, so let me pull this up and let me give you guys the situation here. Oh, I got to share the other screen. All right. So there's a guy who's at this. Here's a situation. But there's a guy. He's at like this. Let me take off our thing. He's at like a complex, like an apartment complex. It's in Florida, or a condo or something. And he's in the pool, right? He's swimming long way down the pool. Some lady comes in and is like, I want to swim this way, the opposite way. And he's like, well, just go down there and do it. Like, so she doesn't listen to him. She keeps swimming and then they collide. And he's like, what are you doing? Actually, this video kind of shows, I don't want to show it all because this is what we're going to be watching, but they collide and then she calls her boyfriend or husband to the scene. And this, I'll play. Here it goes.
Swim. The woman's husband flashed a concealed firearm, and both parties called 911. When Guerrero...
So the husband pulls a gun, pulls up his shirt. He's got a gun, right? Now the cops come, right? So the innocent guy goes outside. The guy who did nothing wrong, he goes outside, and this is what happens.
Guerrero arrived as the second officer on scene. She flipped out on Ryan and took him into custody.
Hey man, how you doing? Keep your hands out your pockets for me.
I'm not the one who's done.
Sir, I don't keep your hands out of your pockets.
Relax. I haven't done a crime. Don't talk to me like
Listen
that.
to me. I don't know you.
This guy is amazing. He knows his rights. It's so good.
You're the one with the gun.
Get down on the ground now. Get down on the ground. Get down on the ground.
What the
Because I told you not to reach for anything.
I haven't committed a crime. You don't have any.
Hands out to your
I
side
haven't
now.
committed a crime.
The man that flashed his firearm fearlessly fibbed.
How did you know that you were armed?
I'm not sure.
You told that other officer that you put your hands up like this so that
My wife
is under
I'm not completely sure.
I'm not going to show it all.
I know it didn't come out.
incident.
Yeah, at any time.
Not only do they have the body cam, but they have the audio from the investigation with the police of this lady.
Attempting to stand up, and I needed him seated.
I want to hear him. No, I don't.
Paying me. I explained. Who
Right,
are
right
you?
now.
What's your bad?
Body tight. It was like.
Don't. Why are you yelling at me?
Because I have every
Who
right
are
to right
you?
now.
What's your badge number?
321 Guerrero, Guerri. Make sure you spell it right.
If you're this scared of a guy
Scared?
in a swimsuit,
I've been here for 20 years.
You're terrified of a guy in a swimsuit. I didn't do anything.
You can shut your mouth now.
Verdict is in. All right, guys, I'll go back. Sorry.
Woo.
So anyway, is that not great? This guy
What
is
a
like,
teaser.
who are you guys talking to? It's great, and he's right. He did nothing wrong, and they arrest him. It's wild. So anyway, Sunday at 8. That's what we're gonna watch. Let's go to the verdict.
Wait, Sue Geronimo. I don't think Chad's not guilty.
I responded to her and told her that. Verdict is in. All right, folks, look at that. Look at that. How did that worked out, Bob? Remember, we literally
look at us.
Look at us.
Jay, that's clean living, baby. That's clean living. All right, Jay, let's throw polls up. Let's see what's up.
I gotta go into my.
Can we do a fucking poll?
Why do I not hear anything though? I hope it's because they haven't turned on the audio.
Wow.
Oh, there we go. Let me tweet it out. Actually.
Yeah. Me too.
All right, please be seated. All right, we are back in session on the record in State of Wisconsin versus Nikolai Mew. The attorneys are present with Mr. Mew. 12 jurors are in the courtroom. Mr. Ashland, I understand you are the foreperson.
Correct.
Did your jury reach a verdict?
Yeah.
Did you reach a verdict on each of the 6 counts?
Yes, we did.
Can you please hand the verdict forms to the bailiff?
Man, I'm not gonna have time for a poll.
I know. I gave up. I
Fuck polls. What do you think, Jay? Quick.
I'm not going to say because someone spoiled it. What's your guess, Bob?
Verdicts read as follows.
Oh, here we go.
As to count one of the information, Isaac Schumann, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree reckless homicide as submitted.
Reckless. Okay.
Question, did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count two of the information, Alexander Martin, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count three of the information, Dante Carlson, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count four of the information, Anthony Carlson, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count five of the information, Riley Madison, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count six of the information, Madison Cohen, the jury finds Nikolai Mew guilty of battery as charged. Wow. Did Mr. Mew commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. Members of the jury, I do have to verify that this is in fact a unanimous verdict. So I'm going to ask each of you if I correctly read the verdict and if you agree with it. So when I call your name, if you agree with the verdict that I read, please answer by saying yes. If you disagree with the verdict, you can answer by saying no. Ms. Navarro, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Mr. Cook, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Mr. Snell, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Ms. Pelzel, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
They're not doing a good job here muting the names.
Mr. Wiley, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Got all the juries.
Ms. Knapp, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Mr. Diedrich, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Ms. McMahon, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Mr. Henderlong, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Mr. Ashland, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Ms. Lewandowski, do you agree with the verdict that I read?
Yes.
Any additional polling? No? All right. It is a unanimous verdict. Members of the jury, your service in this case is completed. You are free to read accounts about this trial. You are free to talk about this case with anyone. However, you do not have to discuss this case with anybody or answer any questions about this case other than from the court. So this includes the parties, the lawyers, the media, or anybody else. If you do decide to discuss this case with anyone, please treat any such discussion with a degree of solemnity, such that whatever you would say, you'd be willing to say in front of your fellow jurors or here in open court. It is in the public interest that there be the utmost freedom of debate in the jury room, and that jurors be permitted to express their views without fear of incurring the anger of any litigants or the public. For that reason, please respect the privacy of the views of your fellow jurors. If you do decide to speak, please only speak for yourselves and not for anybody else. On behalf of my colleagues, Judges Needham, Vlack, and Nordstrand, along with my courtroom staff, thank you for your participation in this important case. Court is now adjourned. Please take the jury out.
All rise for the jury.
Man, I'm super jealous of the sound in this courtroom.
Yeah, here and the video.
Yeah, top notch, top notch.
What do you think, Bob?
Not like I think it's the right verdict, man. I mean, when I initially tweeted about this case, like whatever it was, when I kind of discovered it when it started, that was my initial. What I had said was voluntary manslaughter. They don't
Based on
have
the
voluntary
unanimous
manslaughter in Wisconsin. So, but this is the equivalent. So, first-degree reckless homicide is the equivalent to that. And I think it's right, you know. But I have to tell you, that carries a very stiff penalty. So first degree reckless homicide is the reckless causing of a death of another human being under circumstances which show an utter disregard for human life. It falls under a Class B felony, which carries a penalty punishable by imprisonment not to exceed 60 years.
Holy shit.
So this is it's pretty heavy duty, man. Like this is no like slap on the wrist, because a lot of voluntary manslaughter are much less in terms of the years. So yeah, man. I mean, he stabbed a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? It's like I think that there was fault on both sides, but in terms of the verdict, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, to be honest with you. You know,
So what are they going to do now? I guess he's going to talk about like sentencing and stuff.
Verdict, I will enter convictions on each of the 6 counts. Bail is revoked. Mr. Mew will be held in custody pending sentencing. My staff will contact the attorneys and will schedule the sentencing date. I will order a pre-sentence investigation report, but we can do the scheduling at a later time. Is there anything else, Mr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Schroffesy? No, sir. All right. Thank you, everyone. Court is adjourned.
Folks, if anybody on this side of the courtroom could please exit, anybody on this side?
I mean, timing wise, though, that worked out like
Dude,
unbelievably.
that was perfect. That was perfect. Yeah, that's I can't wait to see the debate on this one.
I already see it in the chat, and folks.
Yeah, the debate's been like raging so far anyway. Yeah, so this will be interesting. Yeah, I think it's a just verdict, you know. I think I mean, the kids were absolutely acting like assholes, but you know, I mean, should that ever equate to death? No, I don't.
You know, I'm thinking of the Zach. You know, this is just, again, I don't have all the details, so don't come at me. But I'm just thinking of the difference. We watched the Zach Latham trial, right? And it was essentially this father and 2 kids that rushed Zach. But to me, I don't know all the details, but Zach was like in his garage, like he was in like a confined area. He had like, I don't know, maybe it's a little different in this case where like they were outside. Could he have navigated it where this didn't happen? You know what I mean? Like it's similar, but I feel like if Zach didn't defend himself that way, he was going to get beaten probably to death. Maybe people think that in this instance, this gentleman also would have been beaten to death, but I don't know. There's a little difference to it. To me, it seems like, because he was really cornered, whereas this is like an outdoor. But I guess if there's enough people, they could do that to you as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that was different. You know, there was the element in the Latham trial in that it was his property.
Right. Good point. I mean? Excellent point. Right.
You know, this is out
he
in
has a right to
river.
Himself.
Everybody has a right to be there. You know, both sides had a right to be there.
Right.
In Zach's case, I mean, these people came onto his property, you know, and attacked him. And, you know, so yeah, it's an interesting verdict. They came back quicker than I thought. So,
and you talk about it too, the makeup of the jury is so crucial in this case because, like you said, you were talking to your daughter, right? And you guys had different views on it. So, like,
very
that is
different
critical in these cases,
right? Because, you know, I mean, you talk to like 16, 17-year-old, you know, teenagers, they look at me and I'm like a super old man. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, so like these kids think this guy's an old creep, you know, because like that was like Cameron's initial instinct when I showed her the video. I sat her down. I'm like, oh, look at this. This is like a really interesting case. And I'm like, what's your gut saying? She's like, oh, like she's like that, you know, he's an old creep coming around these kids. What's he around these kids for? I'm like, it's a public river. He could be wherever he wants. She's like, well, you know, I mean, they asked him to leave and, you know, he wouldn't leave. I'm like, he doesn't have to leave. He was looking for something. So yeah, it was interesting to see that dynamic. And like I said yesterday, the demographics of the jury were decidedly older folks, from like a majority. I'd say 9 out of the 12 were 40 and older. I think
Oh,
there was
wow.
one 90-year-old. Now, I don't know who was alternates and who were, the actual jury, but they were all older. So, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, because like one of the things that we're always trying to figure out when we're picking a jury is who's our perfect juror, right? Like, depending, and that always depends on the fact pattern of the case. Who are the victims? If there's a child victim, like I typically want to stay as far away from mama bears as I possibly can, because mama bears are going to be like, oh, hell no. It's like somebody killed a child, they're going down. You know what I mean? So it's like you're, and it's hard. It's hard to try to figure out what a perfect juror would look like in any individual case. I would have felt comfortable with the ages of these jurors going into this, because I'm putting it in the context of, okay, well, if that's me out on that river and I've got my like alleys upriver, and one of my buddies lost his phone, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go back and look for it. And I get into this brouhaha, this weird thing that happens, like, where's my head at? But the other thing is I'm like, I don't think that I'm capable of sticking a knife in somebody. I mean, maybe if I truly, truly feel that my life is in danger, or probably more the likely scenario is if somebody's attacking my family, then, then I'm maybe I'm capable of doing it. As I sit here in this chair, I just don't feel like I could do it. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm not, like, I have a hard time killing insects, man. It's like I let little spiders out of my back door.
Bob, you're talking to the guy who got a humane mousetrap, caught 5 mouse last week, and drove him to the fucking park. I get it.
I know, man. I mean, we're just we're humane people, and it's like we're not violence induced human beings. So that's like, but I guess in that situation, you never know. Yeah. So interesting verdict. I certainly am not upset by it. I think that, and you can't be, like, so what I'm saying, in a case like this, you have 12 people sitting on that jury, and if they came to a consensus, you have to feel secure in that, because again, this isn't like a whodunit type case. Did he do it? Didn't he do it? Did he do it? Didn't he do it? He did it. And then the question becomes, were his actions reasonable under the circumstances? And clearly those 12 people felt no, they weren't. They were
It'll be
way
super
over the
interesting
top.
if they interview any of them. I'd love to see what the thought process was. And
yeah, there was a lot of talk, like when I jumped off of our live the other day and I got onto Court TV, we were talking about the Mew thing. And both of the, and I think I said it on our follow-up live, that like both the dudes, like Michael Ayala, who was the host, and the other lawyer, were both like, man, he just screwed himself, like talking about Mew when he was on the stand, because he just didn't have an explanation for why he lied after. And I don't know if Jay, but like after this whole thing goes down, he had tossed the knife. And then when he's sitting back in the cop car, he's lying, and he's saying that, he says, I didn't. So he's like, I heard there was a bunch of stabbings out on the river, completely acting.
like completely that he was even there. Wow.
Yeah. And then, obviously at some point he has to get rid of, that particular theory that it wasn't me. And then it was, so then it turns to, well, one of the kids had a knife and I was able to wrestle the knife. There were 2 knives. There was like a kitchen knife and another. So he makes up these stories. I think ultimately, if we are to hear from one of the jurors or a couple of the jurors, I think that aspect of kind of consciousness of guilt type shit after the fact, wherein he felt just that it was necessary for him to lie about what happened because he didn't know there was a video. That's one of those things. He doesn't know that somebody caught it all on video, which he should have. I mean, the one kid, Juwan, the screamer, I call him, like he clearly was holding his phone up, which I guess he initially thought was the phone that he was searching for, because it was in, like, I guess they rent phone cases when you go to Tube on the river over there. So yeah, man, interesting stuff. Interesting.
That is
stuff.
interesting. I didn't realize that. So really, like, that really questions his, like that, like you said, consciousness of guilt. If you're on the jury, like, well, why would he lie? Because he knows he did something wrong. Like that might be in your head if
Yeah. And I see in the chat, Tony and Deja. So he was not found guilty of intentional first degree homicide. That's the highest felony that you can get in Wisconsin. He was not found guilty of that. He was found guilty of a much lower, lesser included. Where there's a lot of leeway in the sentencing for the judge. All right, so just so you guys are clear, like, because I would, as I said earlier, I would have been stunned and upset if he had been found guilty of that. Now, if the judge hammers him on sentencing, that's a different story, but there is leeway in terms of what the judge can do as far as sentencing goes. And there's definitely mitigating circumstances here. I mean, the sentencing will be interesting in this because the kids are not without fault at all. I mean, this was precipitated by their actions. If the kids hadn't said anything to him and just let him go about his way and look for the phone, and he said, "Oh, I'm just looking for my friend's phone," and just let him walk on by, this shit's not happening. So I'm assuming that the judge will take that into consideration with respect to the sentencing. But I just wanted to make that clear because I know that I saw some people were like, "What the fuck?" So just so you guys know, thankfully the court, if the state had not done that on Tuesday where they added the lesser includeds, I think he would have walked on it. So, and I said it when the state added the ability for the jury to select those lesser includeds, that saved their case, because I just can't see a world in which they would have come back with intentional first degree intentional homicide on this. So
my question on that is, Bob, if you're the defense attorney and like you agree, like you're like, listen, I know they're not going to, you can't argue that at that point, them adding the lesser, or do you want that because it's a lesser charge? Like if you're the defense attorney, what's your thought when the state is like, all right, well, can they add whatever charge they want? Can they
no, I mean, I'm not, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if I'm the defense on this case, I'm hating it because I don't think that they're able to meet their burden on the intentional first degree, so but they've got the ability to be able to do it.
You can't argue it. There's no, if they want to change it, it's up to them.
Yeah. I mean, typically, yeah. So, yeah, man, interesting. So yeah, you can see in our chat, there's people,
both sides, big time. A lot of,
Dizzy, first degree reckless endangering is a class F. I thought as far as that, the first degree reckless homicide is a class B. I haven't looked up the statute on the endangering on the other counts, Diz, so I don't know.
A lot of questions, Bob, about why weren't the kids charged for like underage drinking or any of their acts? There's a lot of questions about that I see.
What were they asking, Jay?
Like why weren't they were younger kids and they were drinking? Why no charges against the kids for anything?
I mean, it like in the scope of kids dying and being stabbed in comparison to a drinking ticket. I mean,
or assault. Maybe did they hit him first? I'm not sure if that's what folks.
Well, no, so apparently because he was found guilty on the battery of the woman. So there was a woman who came, and I think her name's Madison, maybe. I can't remember what her name is, but she kind of injected herself into the situation, and the story was that he struck her first, and after he strikes her, that's when he first gets punched in the face. He goes down into the river, and then all hell breaks loose. But it appears that he made the first violent physical contact with one of the larger group. So, and they must have bought it. That was not caught on video. So, that was, they found him guilty of it. So they must have believed the witnesses in terms of he made some kind of contact, whether it was a slap, a punch, I don't know. But they found it to be, and there is no duty to retreat in Wisconsin. So, which is interesting, but there still is a duty to be reasonable. And that's what this boiled down to. You know, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Birdie, am I getting? Somebody asked if I was getting inside intel again. Mallow, no, just plain luck. We had it up on the screens. Hold on, I'm tweeting it.
By the way, if you're coming in late as far as Chad Daybell goes, they are on break until about now. So we'll go back to once they're just not. I have an eye on it. They are not back. By the way, at 2 I have to go. So Bob will be taking over solo after that. So make sure you're subscribed to Defense Diary. Let me put it in here if you're not on my side, because this afternoon I will not be live. So make sure you are subscribed to Defense Diaries.
Okay. Yeah, and likewise, all my subs, make sure you're subbing to Jay if you haven't. And Jay and I are figuring we've been chatting what we may be doing with Karen Reed. Is we may be alternating. So Jay will do one day, I'll do the next day, Jay, me, so that you guys will, because the thought process being that we'd like to have all you guys in the same chat.
Exactly.
It's nice for you guys to be able to talk with each other, even though we can put it up, like Jay could put the chat up here, where we'll see what everybody's saying in both chats. It's cool for everybody to be able to, you know, interact with one another in real time. So we think that it would be cool for you guys to be able to do that. So we're thinking that's the way we're going to handle it.
Do you know, Bob? Is it jury selection on Monday? Like, does anyone?
I don't know, man.
Like,
we're gonna have to Dizzy will get that all figured out for us, I imagine.
And by the way, if you're not familiar, if you've never heard of the Karen Reed case, it is a doozy. So buckle up, and it'll have better cameras, better audio. And if you missed it this morning, what we're probably going to do is me and Bob cover Karen Reed during the day, and then Shannon, and Allie, our significant others who are way better than us, at night, they give you a breakdown certain days of what has gone on in the Chad Daybell trial, and then you don't have to watch that nonsense video and audio except for the important parts. So that's what the plan is.
Love that plan. Let's see. Sorry, y'all. I'm getting this tweet out on the mute thing.
Thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to our mods who are just amazing. Like I was saying with Karen Reed, I was concerned. Bob has been following for a while, and I was like, I don't know, but with our mods and our community, I think we'll be okay.
We'll be great. We'll be great. I mean, look, we can see it in our chat right here. We've got people that are upset, shocked by the verdict, but everybody's being cool. You know, I mean, we're allowed to have different thoughts on these things. You know,
we encourage it as long as you're respectful.
We do. It's like no one wants an echo chamber. Echo chambers suck. You know, it's like what we love is discourse as long as it's civil and everybody stays cool, because at the end of the day, you know, civil discourse is what makes the world go around.
And we're back.
All right. Perfect. Look at that. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Laura, just real quick, what the idea is that Bob and I cover Karen Reed during the day. Then,
so if you're ready, we'll have the jurors brought back.
Then Shannon and Allie at night, certain nights during the week, will provide a recap of what is going on in Daybell, the highlights, not the whole thing, what the important things you want to know. Plus, that will also keep me and Bob from burning out, especially Bob, because Bob is not only doing this, he's doing his podcast, he's doing TV appearances. So, like, if they could take a little of that from us, that would be great.
Oh, that would be amazing, dude. Amazing.
Absolutely. Claire says free thinking encouraged. We are not in a cult, right? We are free, want free thinking.
All rise.
Jury is present and accounted for.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Please be seated. We're back on the record then on case CR 22-21-1623, just concluded the morning recess. Detective Hermosillo is still under oath. And Mr. Wood, if you'd like to continue with your direct, you can do that at this time.
Thank you. Detective, I think when we left off, we were speaking about the autopsy of J.J. Vallow, correct?
Correct.
You had mentioned earlier that you did observe the actual, not only the body, but then the autopsy of J.J. Vallow.
That's correct.
And were you present for that entire autopsy?
Yes, I was.
And when that autopsy was concluded, what did you do?
At that time, Dr. Warren and his team removed JJ from that autopsy table. They then brought out a second, excuse me, black body bag, and I recognized it to be the same body bag from the scene because it also had dirt. And they placed that body bag on the table.
And what did you observe next?
Dr. Warren and his team opened the body bag, looked at the remains for what was left as far as remains inside. He stated there was nothing he could do at that time with an autopsy, so.
Judge, I'm going to move to strike as hearsay.
Your own statement already came in.
And I'm going to move to strike.
So,
Would you repeat the question?
What did you observe? What were you had just talked about the Ty's remains being brought out. What did you observe?
Once the remains were brought out, Dr. Warren opened the bag and looked at the remains and stated there was nothing he could do at that point. So at that time, we left the autopsy room for the day.
And when you left, did you do anything in furtherance of your investigation that day?
No.
Did you return to the Ada County Coroner's office the next day?
We did. On June 12th, 2020, we went back to the Ada County Coroner's office. At that point, Lieutenant Ball took custody of some of the evidence and we transported it to the state lab in Meridian.
And were you with Lieutenant Ball when you did that?
I was, yes.
And once you took it to the state lab, what did you do?
Those items were checked into the state lab. And then that concluded what we did for that day.
Detective, you spoke earlier about some of the other agencies you've worked with. in this investigation. And is it correct you work with Fremont County?
Correct, yes.
And I believe you testified that your primary focus in this investigation was looking for Tylee and JJ. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Was there an investigation in Fremont County at the same time that had connections to your investigation?
Yes, there was.
What was that investigation?
Fremont was investigating the death of Tammy Daybell, who was married to the defendant, Chad Daybell. Kind of the exact same time we were doing our investigation with missing children.
And would you meet with Fremont County and discuss the cases together?
Yes, we would.
And would you aid each other in those investigations?
Yes.
Would you share information?
Yes.
Detective, are you aware of any event involving Tammy Daybell on October 9th, 2019?
Yes, I am.
How did you become aware of that event?
Through the course of sharing information with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, we were advised.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes.
I gotta say, Bob, you called us from the beginning. There's going to be a lot of kind of John Pryor objecting, trying to catch up, keep up with what's going on. You called it, man.
Yeah. I mean, trying a case like this with this much evidence, it's tough alone. You know what I mean? It's a lot, like the mechanics of it all. That's what I kept saying about with Shannon and the Crumley thing. And in this case has huge amounts of evidence, like it's a lot. It's a lot. So, yeah, I mean, there's a reason they are anticipating this thing's going to take 8 to 10 weeks, man.
It's a long time.
It feels slow paced, doesn't it? Like, doesn't it?
Oh
just
yeah,
feel like
it really, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to have the court reporter, if we could, read back Mr. Wood's previous question before the sidebar, and then I'll see if there's an objection held by defense.
Question, how did you become aware of that event?
Is there an objection to that, Mr. Pryor?
No, not to that question.
Okay, then Mr. Wood, just proceed with another question.
I don't think there's no objection to the question. I don't think it's been answered yet.
Okay. You can answer.
We were advised through the course of our investigation that.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. The question is whether he was advised, not what he was advised of, but whether he was advised.
Our response, Mr. Wood?
I'm not quite sure I understand that objection, Your Honor.
I don't as well, so you can continue with your response.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How did you become aware of the events of October 9th, 2019?
Through the course of our investigation, we were aware of those events through speaking with Fremont County Sheriff's Office.
Why was it important to you in investigating your case to share information and receive information from Fremont County?
It was important because the suspects in that case were the exact same suspects in our case. And so we wanted to make sure that we shared information so nothing was missed. At that point, we were still looking for 2 small children. And so it was imperative to us that we shared information and gathered information from neighboring counties and anybody that was involved with this case.
And did you also confer with Arizona law enforcement?
We did, yes.
Detective, are you aware of who Charles Vallow was?
Yes.
Who was he?
Charles Vallow was married to Lori Vallow.
Is he alive?
No, he is not.
Do you know when he died?
Charles died July 11th, 2019.
Are you aware of how he died?
Charles was shot by Alex Cox, Lori's brother.
Now, you testified earlier that your initial involvement in this case involved looking for a Jeep.
That's correct.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you testified that you were looking for that Jeep because it was requested by Arizona law enforcement.
That's correct, yes.
And are you aware of why they were looking for that Jeep?
Yes, I am.
Why were they looking for that Jeep?
That Jeep was a suspect in an attempted homicide of Brandon Boudreaux, who was married to Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux. The suspect in that homicide was also Alex Cox.
Detective, going back to October 9th, 2019, Tammy Daybell, are you aware of the incident that took place with Tammy Daybell?
Yes, I am.
What was it?
Judge, I'm going to object. There's no foundation as to how you became aware of it.
Sustained.
Through your investigation, did you become aware of what happened to Tammy Daybell?
Yes, I did.
And how did you become aware of that information?
Sharing information with Fremont County.
And so was this part of the collective knowledge of the case that you were?
That's correct, yes.
And did you aid in that investigation as well?
I did.
So you personally became aware of these events?
Correct.
Based on your knowledge and your investigation, are you aware of any event involving Tammy Daybell on October 9th, 2018?
Judge, again, there hasn't been proper foundation.
I think at this point I've established that it's through his investigation and knowledge.
This objection's overruled.
You can answer the question.
Yes, I'm aware.
And what was that event?
On October 9th, 2019, Tammy Daybell believes that she was shot at in the driveway of the defendant Daybell's residence.
And when you say shot at, are you aware of how she thought she was shot at?
She initially reported that it was possibly a paintball gun.
Detective, in your investigation, did you ever put together timelines of events that took place?
Yes, I did.
Why is it important to do that?
Just to establish who the key figures were and the key dates to aid in our investigation, so we can make sure that we share the accurate and correct information with the other agencies.
And in preparing for this trial, did you prepare any charts of key figures to aid the jury in understanding your testimony and the testimony of the trial?
Yes, I did.
And was that based on your involvement in the case
Yes,
and your investigation?
correct.
And based on I'm sorry, that wasn't very well said. Based on the information you gained from your investigation.
That's correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 30. Detective, do you have State's Exhibit 30 in your hand?
Yes, I do.
What does it purport to be?
Those are the key figures that I put together as far as the investigation goes, photographs.
And did you do that to aid this jury in understanding who the people involved in this case are?
Yes,
And did you do that in anticipation of your testimony?
yes, I did.
Right. And are those, the pictures attached with those names, are those true and accurate representations of the individuals attached to those names?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes only, the state would move to enter State's Exhibit 30 into evidence.
Any objection?
For demonstrative purposes, no.
Very well. Exhibit 30 is entered for that reason.
May I publish?
Yes.
Detective, if you can just use your pointer and just, for purposes of the record, read the names attached with each picture.
Sure. This is Lori Vallow Daybell, Charles Vallow, Alex Cox, who was Lori's brother, Chad Daybell, Tammy Daybell, his deceased wife, Tylee Ryan, who is daughter to Lori, JJ Vallow, who's a son to Lori, and Melanie Pulowski Boudreaux, she was remarried, is the niece to Lori Vallow.
And when you say that JJ was Lori Daybell's son, was he also Charles Vallow's son?
Yes, he was.
And that was by way of adoption, correct?
That's correct.
And so Alex Cox was JJ and Tylee's uncle.
Yes.
Detective, similar to that last chart, did you prepare a timeline in anticipation of your testimony?
Yes, I did.
And did you do that based on your experience and knowledge of the case?
Yes, I did.
And it was based on information you gained through your investigation?
That's correct.
And did you do that to aid the jurors in understanding just the basic timeline of the events that happened in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask the witness be handed State's Exhibit 31.
All right, I'm about to tag team Allison in real quick. I got to do
All right.
something for about 40 minutes. So here it goes. Ready? Oh, yeah.
Tag it in, Allie.
She's in, tagging in Allie.
Well, you took my spot. Now I'm in this stupid spot.
Why is it a stupid spot?
I like the basement.
Ah.
I like my lighting in the basement. There's nothing special up here.
Judge, could we approach, please, for the sidebar?
Yes.
Lot of approaching.
So who are we listening to?
We're still listening to Detective Hermosillo.
Oh Lord.
We just got this morning was like very gruesome details. Now we're on to they were just talking about Tammy Daybell.
I warned you about that when they got to the finding of the bodies, it was going to be. Is that what they were doing?
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. Whew.
We were telling folks the plan to have you next week when Karen Reed starts, and people are very excited to get yours and Shannon's recaps later. So people are very excited about that.
Yeah. So what's he getting into now? God, I want him to be over.
Good question. I don't know. They were just giving more evidence that they all had to review.
Still on direct.
Yeah, still on direct.
I told you it was going to be a long one. Have they put in any of the digital evidence on Chad, his location?
Not yet.
I can't remember if it's this guy or a different guy that does that.
I have a question for you. We talked about this with Bob. I'm curious with you, Allie, like in cases that you've handled, does some of the cases with like the gory details, does it stick with you? Like you can still think about those cases that you had to handle going through like gruesome evidence?
Yeah, for sure. Like I've told the story before that on the Garcia case, for the longest, I didn't look at the pictures of the little boy. Like like the crime scene pictures, anything. And for the longest, they were like, oh, all these injuries look the same across the two scenes, the two murders that were like 5 years apart or 7 years apart, whatever they were at this point. It's not in my brain anymore. But when I eventually looked, because Bob Sr. was like, you're gonna have to look. You can't be looking away at trial. And I'm like, why not? So when I eventually looked, I was like, these injuries look nothing alike. They're not similar in the way the state has been saying at all. But yeah, it's very hard to look at. Yeah.
Laura says, I love the Garcia podcast. Yes, folks, if you are not familiar with Defense Diaries podcast, you need to be familiar with it. Make sure you're subscribed on any of your favorite podcast forums.
Ooh, I'm knocking shit over. You're right.
Not sure why this is taking forever for this particular whatever they're trying to get in. Allie, are you still working on that whatever motion you've been working on for like ever? Are you still working on that?
Oh no, I mean it's done, but there was some technical issues, so I'm like still actually with my other work, like fixing some of it, and have to like refile it. So, but yeah, no, I finished for the most part.
Yeah, and I guess in a case like this for Pryor, or like when you had Garcia, like it's got to be pretty difficult to like, how do you handle any other cases you have when you're like just handling a case? You can't, like, you just have to have
No, like there's pre-trial you can, like you're spending a lot of extra time doing discovery and motion work, but you're still working. But once you're, like maybe, a month before, or like 2 months before, a month before, you're probably not looking at anything else. And then once trial starts, there's no one, typically no lawyers talking to anyone about anything else while they're on trial.
What happens? Like, do you have like clients who are like, well, what about my case? Do you just have to have like your staff be like, listen, they got a trial. You gotta relax. There's nothing we can do.
No, that's that. Yeah. And then we remind them how would they want us to handle their trial?
If it was there, right.
Right. And like one that's going to be weeks, months, you have to have your, like we had associates that, would handle everything, and clients would be warned, and the courts would know, like, all right, we're, so.
It looks like they're back, folks.
This time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's an evidentiary issue to resolve, which we are going to take up outside of the presence of the jury. We'll do that as quickly as we can. So I will be off the bench while I research this momentarily. Then we'll come back on and make a ruling outside of the jury's presence, bring them back in and continue evidence.
All rise, please.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't tell him to go to lunch. Like, how long does he think it's going to take for him to research this? Because they should hypothetically be taking lunch in an hour. Like, I wonder how long he's going to take.
Maybe based on like what you just said, you can assume that he's not anticipating that it's going to be more than 15 minutes or 10 minutes or something. Because what time is it? Is it too early for lunch?
I mean, there right now it's 11, so I guess normally they go at 12.
Yeah. But I've definitely seen them do it, like if it's 11:30, say, all right, we're going to take a longer lunch,
I'll be right back. I gotta let my dumb dog inside. She's barking. Be right back.
I decided chewing gum in the microphone might not be what everybody wants to hear right now. So someone in the chat here, tell me something interesting that's happened thus far today. As far as facts specific to Chad.
Maybe see
Yeah, here we go. Never mind.
Oh, so he's gonna do. Well, he's not there, so I don't.
Did he say they were doing it in chambers?
Yeah, I think he said he had to look it up quick. But so what? He's everyone just waits for him to come out and decide. I wonder what it was.
Yeah, I missed it. Did he say?
No, I don't think so.
What prompted what was the issue right before they started?
I think they were trying to, they in this trial they've been doing pretty much each piece of evidence where they like present it to the defense, present it to the judge, then give it to the witness. Once I think it might have been like maybe there was an objection, and he has to determine whether it can be allowed. What do you think about the verdict in the Nikolai?
What was it?
Guilty of the lesser first degree malicious, whatever the lesser one was.
Wait, so either first degree reckless or was it? So is that a class B felony? So he could do up to 60 years.
Yeah, that's what Bob was saying, up to 60 years.
So they must have decided to ask for that after all, or the state did.
Yeah, yeah.
And attempted on all the others, or not guilty on the others?
No, guilty on all the others.
As attempted homicide.
No. What, guys? What was it? Guys, what was the guilty verdicts? I forget. It was guilty, but I forget what the.
Well, because he was charged with attempted first degree murder of all those other people.
No, it wasn't murder for all those, but I'm not sure what it was.
And you can't get attempted reckless homicide. Oh, I thought
first degree reckless class B. Oh no, that's reckless endangerment is what I think.
As to the other people.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura.
I specifically told Bob when he wanted me to tell me, and I was going to get on in the basement. And then he was like, well, but you weren't answering me. And I was like, well, then like you could stand up and like call out to me.
Don't worry. I want the big screen. I'll keep you on the little camera. We could barely see you. You're like the little detective, the little tiny detective. That's us. We're like little screen.
Tiny lawyer, hold me close.
Is Bob doing a TV spot, or he just had something to do?
No, I think he does this. He's got these little stickers here that are literally the same size as the little one on the screen. These little defense diary stickers. I think it's a podcast he does with somebody every week. So like something that he does. And it's usually very like exactly 45 minutes or exactly an hour, like whatever the case may be.
Here's the real question, Allie. How do you rein that man in? I feel Bob is like the squirrel on the, like you guys have on the fear. He's running around trying to do a million things. How do you rein him in? Can you? I
absolutely cannot. I mean, I think I like rag him enough about social media where he really is only on Twitter. But I also think he's sneaking all sorts of other social media that I'm not seeing.
He's sneaking it. He's sneaking the good stuff. He's sneaking.
I think it's because we were in bed and I like looked over and I was like, what's that app you're on? I thought you never went on. I thought you never used that one. Like only because it's too much. You
Right.
know, like if you're gonna like you can't do this all day and that all day, you know, but and I'm just so anti social media as it is. Like if it wasn't work related, I'd be like, no, you should just be completely off of it as well. But I do feel out of the loop a lot of times. Like I'll have friends will be like, well, you know how blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, because I'm not following you on social media. So unless you have, told me yourself this information, then I don't know it.
Bob's sneaking Reddit. Bob's he's on like different stuff. TikTok and
No, that I would have been fine with because he had such a huge following on TikTok. I was like, why did you just let TikTok go like that? Like, why didn't you keep that going? And I guess he just said it was too much.
Well, TikTok's funny, man. I got up to like I'm at like 63,000. I think you guys are like 78 or 80,000. But like and I was doing good, and I heard this. There's a theory, but I was getting like millions of views on certain videos. Now I'll post a video and I'll get 600 views. I'm like, I have 60,000. How is it possible to have But what I heard is with TikTok, what they were doing is if you were a newer account within the first 6 months, they would push your stuff. They would put, and then once you get to a certain point, you kind of almost get shadow banned. I don't know if that's true or just maybe my content isn't good anymore. But
I think it makes sense.
thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you. Again, at 2:00, I will be going off. But make sure you're subscribed to Defense Diaries because they will be here. And I mean, that should be around when they're taking lunch, but I don't know what the deal is now. Instead of giving the jury a break, they're just sitting there, or they let them go and then call them back in, I guess.
Yeah, no, they let them go. So, I mean, clearly, whatever issue the lawyers are still out there, right?
Yep, I see Pryor.
So the judge is just doing some research on his own. So it's clearly not something super easy, unless he's planning on coming out, like unless he's writing himself a little, response citing certain parts of the law. But usually if they're going to do that, they just will pull it up, whatever they're looking up. Once they find what they want, they'll just read it from the, like the document off their computer. So I don't know if he's still searching. No,
so is he like in like some law library app or website? Like what does he research? Like what do they look at when they're researching stuff?
No, depending on what the issue is, he could be looking at like a bench book. There's bench book for judges.
A book? What is this, 1950? He's looking at a book?
Well, it could be a bench book online, like in.
Yeah, all right.
Right. Or typically it's just you hop on Westlaw or Lexis and, it's an internet search on a legal database that, that lawyers use, and judges. But there's also, judges often will pick up a code book, like the actual book, and just go to a certain code, depending on what it is. Like you're not going to just, if you've got the code book right there, you're not going to bother to go on the internet and look. You'll just flip open the book and read it.
Judges like you who hate all this fancy social media, they're not going on a website. They're going to a book. They want to touch, they want to smell the paper. They want to. Guys, by the way, we're just waiting. The judge said he had to research something, and he sent the jury out, and you can see little tiny detective Hermosillo there, Pryor's there. So that's what we're waiting on.
Yeah, he clearly didn't think it was going to take very long, or he would have let people go take a bathroom break, or he didn't even. I wonder if Hermosillo can really even step down if he wants to. So does anyone know what they were discussing just before the judge said he had to go research?
Yeah, could anyone hear that from the potato microphones that they're using?
Who sounds rude and angry?
Probably me.
Yeah.
If it's not you, Allie. If it's,
it's definitely not you. I've never heard you sound rude and angry.
You'd be surprised, some folks.
Oh yeah, that's what Shannon did tell me. That's not true, people. That's a joke, just to be clear. Shannon has never said anything like that. Next thing you know, someone will be like, well, Allison said, Shannon said. Jay's
Exactly.
rude and angry. Sarcasm.
Talking about Alex. Who's Alex?
The brother.
Oh, Alex Cox?
No. Is that his last name? Is that Lori's maiden name?
Yeah, yeah.
Jules, right? I don't. Jay gets canceled.
So you guys are gonna be talking about that Koberger hearing tonight, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think just Bob thinks it'll be informative as far as understanding how the impact of a one-sided disbursement of information can affect an entire jury pool, and also just seeing how much the state wants to fight like any other information making it, and just will insist until they're blue in the face that somehow that is impacting the jury pool, when not recognizing how their press releases, their motion work, their is doing the exact same thing.
So Jules, thank you, Jules. They were discussing a timeline that this officer made, and the state wanted to introduce it as demonstrative, and that's when they approached. Thank you, Jules.
Okay. Right. So he's clearly just looking at the rules of evidence as far as demonstrative evidence, but there has to be some certain level of what the information being in there actually coming from. There's different forms of like demonstrative evidence that can get in those. If they're talking, for example, of like it's him summarizing large amounts of information. So this is like this summary that he did, but that's usually not coming in as demonstrative. Sometimes they will let that in as substantive because it accurately takes voluminous information and makes it, shrinks it down and puts it together. So I don't know if there was some argument on whether it could be used as demonstrative or would ever be considered as substantive, or if the judge needed to give some sort of like instruction to the jury beforehand to say, this is not evidence. This is, for demonstrative purposes only. But there's still got to be, so I guess we'll see what it is when he comes back, but it's clearly not something very simple or he'd be back.
As he says, some of that evidence will include a lot about Alex since they think he did the actual killing.
Wait, so is this, when you say you're talking about the state thinks Alex did the actual killing?
I believe so. I think so. Yeah.
I don't know if they really indicated very strongly their position on who probably did the actual killing in Lori's trial. Because I think they had Chad carrying one of the kids out. Maybe that was Alex too. Is that you, Nook?
Thanks for being here, everybody. If you could hit that like button, if you haven't hit it, we greatly appreciate it on both channels. Get it in the algorithm.
So I went on yesterday after I left you guys, and I couldn't find the like button.
What do you mean you couldn't find the like?
Well, I clicked on from Bob's like X, and it opened up to not like a YouTube screen.
Oh, well, that's because we are also live streaming on X, Allie. It's so there's no like, only on YouTube, only on the old.
Oh, so I didn't know because of this, the way what we're on right now. I didn't know if it was something different and what wasn't like actually. Now I see there's X and YouTube up there.
Yeah, it's similar to StreamYard, but a little different. But yeah, so I can tell you right now a little breakdown. Right now, there are 164 people on my YouTube, 187 on my Twitter. There's 303 on the Defense Diaries Twitter, and there's 175 on the YouTube, totaling 829 viewers right now. And we appreciate all you being here.
That breakdown. That is some numbers coming at us with the facts.
Analytics, baby.
I wish I knew more about what led up to this so I could be giving better information, but assuming it's something similar to what the viewers have said, then I think I've given probably as much as I
could
give.
Yeah.
But
And again, folks, if you want coverage, Allie and Bob covered Lori Vallow's case on the podcast. So, like, if you want to just hear coverage about these witnesses or what down there, make sure.
I mean, it's really in depth.
Yeah.
I should bring up my freaking pages of notes. It was so much because this was before this concept of doing this. Plus, I don't think we could have spent all day just sitting there, although Bob does that now. But so we watched the whole trial. We took copious notes, and then we streamlined it all together and did it in a podcast. But our theories kind of changed because Bob was really big that Lori was the puppet master, and I was like, no, Chad is convincing her that she is I thought that Chad was manipulating her with the religious aspect, convincing her that she was, I forget all the players in the, I actually ended up with door to door. I was really almost had to become a member of the Mormon church out here after that. Not the Mormon, but which is it? The Latter-day Saints or, I'm forgetting all of it, but I was calling to get clarification on their laws, their religion, what this meant, what that meant. And they wouldn't really talk to me. And except they did when I just called, I'm interested in your religion.
I remember that because that was one of the first things you and I did together. We were,
oh yeah,
and I remember you were waiting for a call. I think you actually got the call when we were on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I kind of felt bad about that maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. So then I ended up reaching out to their lawyer, try to get someone to actually do an official interview. And she was like, yeah, no, but here's, you can read up on us at this and that.
Come join us. Come to our next potluck. Come to our next casting. All those things that they do. Have you, Allie? Have you been following the Karen Reed case as much as Bob? Are you familiar?
I mean, I'm familiar with it enough to know that there were. I believe that the evidence does show that that they were doing that searching before they knew that he was missing. And I know that the FBI was investigating. I'm like, I don't understand how they can start this trial if the FBI is literally investigating whether or not there was official misconduct in the fact that she was even charged. So
it's just, I'm not that, Sean's a little more informed than I am, but I just, when I'm on Twitter, man, it's very similar to Delphi, and there are two sides, and if you don't fall, and they're going at each other and I guess that's just because maybe a regular person who's on Twitter is obviously not going to see that stuff, but when I go on there, of course, of who I follow, obviously, and the things in my algorithm, but man,
right.
It is people are strong. There's pretty much no one in the middle, which is what I will be going into that trial, because I really don't have the information I need. So it will be interesting.
Right. And if the information I'm getting is not true, because I know at some point I saw, well, because when you do a like this a cell phone extraction, when the law enforcement does, they could use like Greenwich Mean Time, they could be using universal time, and then it has to be adjusted based on the time zone, the day, like where they are, what day of the year it is. So I don't know if it's really like everyone's, because some people are saying that search occurred at a completely different time. So I don't know which is true that the evidence shows, like it's just, it could be something as simple as that somebody is looking at it in the raw form when there's an asterisk at the bottom that says this is universal time. So you got to round up 5 hours or round down 5 hours, um,
And that's something that potentially could be interpreted by two different experts differently, right?
No,
Like, no, that's not.
no, they're gonna, it's gonna be, I mean, could it be interpreted differently by two different experts on something different than that principle? I guess, but there should be no question as to the date and time that a text went out. Like,
What about a Google search? Same thing? Because that's the big thing, is a Google search.
oh, right, it was a Google search. Yeah, I mean, in theory, it should be the same thing, unless somebody says, no, I mean, it should really be the same thing. Like they can tell, and I don't know if there's some weird way that somebody says, well, this expert forgot to look at this setting, and this setting said blah blah blah, so you had to round up again, But typically, you can also go to Google and be like, to get the search history for a device, for an IP address during a certain time frame, and that will also give you the information. So it's not like only coming off an extraction of the device; it's coming from Google.
Which one of you and Bob would handle like that portion of a trial, like the data, or would you?
Probably me. Anything technical.
You mean Bob didn't? The person who was didn't realize you guys weren't live for an hour, and
Bob's better. He's a better people person.
Yes,
than I am. Just
Bob's
meaning,
life.
not like that's his only strong suit. He's got many strong suits, but we're a good balance because I might come off more, I don't know, and then he'll come off more even keeled.
That's how me
Unless they start to, unless the lawyer picks on me, and then he'll go off. So,
Well, in general, that's like Shannon's very personable. I'm not saying you're an asshole. I am an asshole. I do not do good. I need her. She's my crutch. If we're like when we're going to this thing in Denver in July, I like people probably are like might be surprised, but I am not very good.
I just got out of the shower, people. That's why I'm like messing with my hair. So you need her to I remember when I was trying to get you to go interview people, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Jay.
she was the one that did it. Remember? I am.
Yeah, but you were supposed to be at least there, like recording it, like we want to interview you, man on the street interviews.
Right. I'm terrible. That's what I'm telling you, Ali. I'm telling you, I'm not good at these things. I want to just crawl in my little hole, which I am right now in front of my right. I could talk in front of a computer, but as opposed to like, which by the way, I'm gonna have to do like we're gonna do in a panel at this convention. I'm already anxious about that. So yeah, that's not my strong suit. Whereas Babe Shannon is a she's theater. She's a former actress and she does theater. So yeah.
So she's good with all that.
She is very good, very personable, very nice. Everyone loves
Bob will
Shannon.
talk to everyone, and I'm sort of like, I like my people, and that's who I'm going to talk to. And, I don't have time for other people.
Same. That's very much how
But I don't get social anxiety. I just get.
You're good to go out and like hang.
Yeah.
So like you don't have any thought before you go out, oh shit, this is gonna be a nightmare.
No.
I want to get home. You don't have a plan like me before I even go out.
No.
I'm like, all right, babe. So she know like if we're going out, like, all right, so I have to have a look or a sign when it's time to leave or
no. He's just like I said. I keep more just not because of any sort of anxiety, just because of, I guess, I don't want to seem like a bitch, but indifference. Like I just want to. I'm just happy to talk to like my people. But we're also often in very large group settings. So, you know, and if we're making a new friend, it's coming from Bob.
By the way, are you guys going on CrimeCon, right? Or
I think so.
that's coming up, right? Isn't that like May? That's like next.
Oh, I think it's right before. Well, wait, when's the
Oh, how
trial?
can you if that's during Delphi?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't, unless it's a weekend and he'll leave and go back. Because we have like, if my grandchild's born, I'm not going anywhere.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that's soon. That's soon, huh?
It's due May 21st.
Wow.
But my daughter-in-law won't let anybody come to the hospital, which I feel like is just absurd. I haven't even said anything because it's clearly what she's decided. Her mother as well. But I'm like, wait, what?
So what? So you have to wait till like when she's released to go to the house?
Yeah. What? I don't. I'll probably ask her about it at the baby shower. Like, so wait, what's this rule? And does it apply to grandmothers?
Does it imply to fun pa and grand? Like...
It definitely applies to fun pa. She's like, I am not. My child's not calling him fun pa. Like,
oh, they're against.
He names himself fun pa. Then that's what his name's going to be. So we have to hope he changes his mind.
Oh boy.
She's like, well, I'm going to be like, do you want to go to grandpa's? It's like, that's kind of not nice though. if he makes that his name, I feel like we have to honor it, you know? But my youngest is the same way. Obviously, not my youngest, my 17-year-old. She's like, there's not a chance in hell my kids are calling him Fun Pop.
But Bob, there's no way he's going to give up on that. You think? Do you?
I don't think so. I tried to convince him that it's like a ripoff of Funkle, so it's not as cool as he thinks it is, but it wasn't working.
Babe says, "Let him be Fun Pa." That's Shannon's official.
I know.
Media.
I gave in. Yeah. But that's why I was telling the girls, like, no, if he names himself that, then yeah, you have to. That's his name.
I feel like the judge did not anticipate being a half hour.
No. Like we could almost go back to what he was saying just before to see what really spurred all this on. But then you won't know when he comes back.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's going to be back at like right now. If they go like their normal time, it's going to be a half hour. Like it's going to be like 10 minutes before it's time to go on lunch. I bet he comes back and just says, "Go to lunch."
One count of battery. Huh. Did you, when you were watching it, did you think that he was going to be found guilty?
I didn't know. I couldn't make an educated decision because I did not watch enough of it to. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like when he would be like the whole I don't remember thing, like for him to keep repeating it instead of just saying, well, yeah, I've already said I lied about that. You know what I mean? And to not remember any part of a conversation. I don't know, but maybe it's like a part of the trauma. I've obviously never stabbed anybody to death, so I don't know what I'm holding in my memory in the from the hours that precede, but he held enough in his memory to lie. He wasn't so not with it to lie. And that's what I was saying before. Like, I don't know what came out about when he eventually said he was fearful. So it was self-defense, that whatever it was that he gave the reason for being fearful was not that they were punching me and throwing me down on what was actually happening. And I don't know why anyone would lie about that.
Right.
But to me, like I said, it depended on when they showed, like when the knife actually came out, which ended up being early enough, I think, for him to have said something. But I mean, it did look a lot like self-defense watching that whole video.
So I haven't seen the whole video. So how many people in total did he stab? Was it 4 or 5 people?
I'm not even sure.
But it was more than
more than one for sure.
Oh, we're back.
All right.
Thanks so much, Dom's mom.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Judge just got off Reddit, folks, so now we can find out what.
All right, we are back on the record on CR 22211623. We are going to take up an objection outside of the presence of the jury as it relates to the state's proposed exhibit, in this case, particularly state's proposed exhibit 31. And the court had to go back and review some prior rulings in the case that occurred some time ago. I've done that now, so what I'd like to go through is the proffer and determination if there's still a objection to the exhibit and make a ruling on that outside of the jury's presence. So Mr. Wood has offered exhibit 31, which is a timeline, and Mr. Pryor, does the defense maintain an objection to the admission of that timeline?
Judge, I spoke with Ms. Blake. And procedurally, I think at the time that the 404B was filed by the state, we were also dealing with the severance issue, is what I recall. And then she discussed that with me. So I think I may have made a non-objection to the 404B. And I think I made a record of that when Mr. Thomas and Mr. Archibald were objecting to that. So I may forego my objection because I think my recollection is I don't have a record of it, Judge, which is a little unusual, but I think I may have noted on the record to the court that I'm not objecting to the introduction of the 404B evidence.
All right, I understand. I think there was lodged an objection back February 14th of 2023.
You did lodge one, buddy.
Due to the 404B motion. Does the state have any clarification on that, Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, just based on recollection, I believe it was not an objection to all of the state's intended 404B, but some of it. And my recollection, and I'm not looking at any document, this is just my recollection, was that the defendant did stipulate to some of the 404B, including issues dealing with Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreaux. That's my recollection.
And Judge, my recollection is that I did file a timely objection, but then at the hearing, there was, and I'm going back, Judge, and we're talking 3 years ago, and I'm just going off of recollection as well, as Mr. Wood is. I believe that I filed an objection, and then at the time of the hearing, I may have orally stated that I'm not objecting to the introduction of the Brandon Boudreaux or the Charles Vallow information, and Mr. Thomas and Mr. Archibald continued theirs, and the hearing was continued on, and somewhere in the interim, Judge, there was a severance order granted, and I don't know whether I was part of the 404B motion. That's where I'm having some difficulty in recollection. My records don't show an order that you granted the 404B in this case, so I don't see an order in this case.
Okay, so just to clarify, there was an objection was filed on behalf of Mr. Daybell by Mr. Pryor, February 14th, 2023 to the 404B. We then had a hearing on the 404B evidence on February 22nd, 2023. The court then issued an oral ruling on the record, and in that oral ruling went through different evidence that was sought to be proffered under 404B. And among the rulings the court made on the court minutes under paragraph 9, specifically referencing consideration of the shooting at Mr. Boudreaux, the court weighed out the 404B arguments and found that it would be admissible at trial. And then in the hearing, I did indicate that I'd gone through the analysis for 404B, looking at the State versus Fox case, doing a two-tiered weighing of the factors, balancing them out with the evidence proffered, and ultimately, and I'm looking at the transcript of this hearing where I made the oral ruling, determining finally, quote, the court does find there is relevance under tier 1, parts 1 and 2 for the introduction of that evidence. And then I looked at rule 403 to see if there was probative value to substantially outweigh the danger of unfair prejudice, and finally determined that as to the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, there would be more probative than unfairly prejudicial, as it would relate back to the purported plan of the defendants. So the court did find that the state was permitted to introduce that 404B evidence. So as we stand here, knowing procedurally that's the ruling, on the timeline, I guess I'll first come back to this proposed Exhibit 31.
Ask
Ask
the defense.
if there's any objection at this point for the defense, Mr. Pryor.
No, Judge.
Okay.
Preserve the record, buddy.
Exhibit 31 then has been offered and will be admitted. I would also note on the record that I think the board has been open to discuss that anyway based on opening argument as well. But for that reason, and also based on the court's prior determination made, I am going to permit that reference on 404B evidence. The reason I'm still discussing this for counsel is I think this now triggers a requirement that I give a limiting instruction to the
That's what I was
jurors
saying.
about how 404B evidence is considered. And I do have prepared a limiting instruction that I am going to advise them of at such point as after your exhibit's been offered, Mr. Wood. Okay. Okay, thanks for the delay there. We can bring the jurors back.
So much of probably what he did was review the transcript and where they were procedurally.
That makes sense.
This is, I don't know where I've got the actual.
And obviously pull a limiting instruction, but I mean, he probably
Judge,
knows
if I could
that.
just quickly inquire before the jury comes back in, if the court did have both pages of that in its.
I only have first page.
Okay, once we get done with this witness, I'll bring that up.
Okay.
I can actually hear Bob. I was wondering if you guys could hear me when I was back behind on the phone.
I can hear you. Oh, you mean no, like in the background? No.
Yeah. Oh, that wouldn't have been good.
No, I would have muted you if there were any issues.
It's like those federal microphones. Those fuckers are really strong.
I don't know if it's the courtroom. I hope it's not me, but this thing keeps like refreshing.
All right.
Hey, it still says Bob Mata. People can tell, I think, maybe.
They've asked if Bob got a different haircut. Bob looks different.
How much more for CEO?
All right, thank you. Please be seated.
What happened?
I just can't imagine how much more.
Yeah.
I feel like the cross would be relatively short, but I don't know.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, apologies for that delay. We were working through an evidence issue. I will note that the state has offered Exhibit 31, which has now been admitted by the court. It's a timeline. It does make some references in there that, for me at this time, I think would be best to give the jurors a special limiting instruction. So I'll read this instruction to the jurors at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, during the course of this trial, evidence will be introduced for the purpose of showing that the defendant committed acts other than for which the defendant is on trial. Such evidence, if believed, is not to be considered by you to prove the defendant's character or that the defendant has a disposition to commit crimes. Rather, such evidence may be considered by you only for the limited purpose of proving the defendant's motive, opportunity, intent, plan, or absence of mistake or accident. So that instruction provided, Mr. Wood, if you'd like to proceed with that exhibit you missed.
Your Honor, I don't have any.
Well, I believe the witness does.
May I publish?
Yes.
So now it's going to be on that little screen. that we
Just
can't
briefly
Yeah, we
before I
won't.
do, Detective, before we took a break,
It's 2024 and we're live streaming from a fucking Atari. I mean, it's ridiculous. The microphones sound like they're potatoes. You can't see anything. It's insane.
we spoke about timeline you had prepared.
Correct.
And the reason you prepared that was to aid the jury in understanding the events of this case.
Yes.
If you can take your pointer and go through these events and just read them into the record.
July 11th, 2019, Charles Vallow dies. September 2nd through September 3rd, 2019, Lori, Alex, and the kids, JJ and Tyler, moved to Rexburg, Idaho. The last known proof of life for Tylee was September 8th, 2019. The last known proof of life for JJ was September 22nd, 2019. The attempted shooting at Brenton Boudreaux, Gilbert, Arizona, or attempted homicide, excuse me, October 2nd, 2019. The attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell, October 9th, 2019. The death of Tammy Daybell, October 19th, 2019.
And if you'll continue on the second page.
November 1st, police receive a call about a Jeep. The Jeep was located November 4th, 2019. Chad and Lori get married in Hawaii, November 5th, 2019. Welfare check on JJ, November 26th, 2019, which is the same day Alex and Chad were contacted. The Rexburg Police Department searched Lori and Alex's apartments November 27th, 2019. Search warrant served on the Daybell residence was June 9th on 2020. JJ and Tyler were taken to the Ada County Coroner's office June 10th, 2020. And the autopsy was conducted June 11th of 2020.
Thank you.
I'm surprised they don't have the wedding on here. The Hawaii trip.
Yeah. All of that time was for that fucking. That's what we wasted a half hour for about that. Jeez.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Oh, cross.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Pryor, cross-examination.
Judge, would the court like me to start, or would the court like to take a break at the lunch break?
Let's go ahead and get started with the cross and go till it was in, please.
He wanted a break, but they're not giving it to him.
We always want that break. But he's going to get it soon enough, so he's probably not that worried. Probably a little bit better to maybe get a couple things in. Unless he's worried his cross is going to be that short. No, actually, he's got 17 minutes, so drag it out.
Good afternoon, all.
Now
Great.
the feed is, this is great. Now the feed.
Morning, officer. Good morning, sir. We do know each other. We've at least exchanged pleasantries a couple of times. Yes, sir. In the past. And I guess for purposes of this hearing, would you prefer that I refer to you as lieutenant or officer? Lieutenant's fine.
Oh yeah, please.
Mr. Pryor, I apologize very much for the interruption. I wanted to.
And he called him
confirm something
Mr.
On that last.
Oh, that's the
exhibit.
judge.
It was entered by the court. Is that a demonstrative exhibit?
That's what I understand.
Either as a demonstrative or a summary.
Or as what?
Thank you, counsel. Apologies for the interruption.
Well, which? So two different things.
I'm also looking for the, oh, I found it. So Lieutenant, you've been involved in a number of aspects in regards to this case, is that right? That's correct. You've done some investigation on your own in terms of a welfare check with Lori Vallow, is that right? Yes. But you've also interviewed a number of witnesses, is that correct? Yes. You interviewed Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, right? Yes. Several times? Few times. And you've interviewed a number of other witnesses as it relates to this case, is that correct? Yes.
Quite a few.
Okay, now, you previously discussed your role as a police officer and investigator in this case. And I guess I want to clarify something if we could, please. As a police officer investigating a case, your role is to conduct an investigation, right? Look at the facts. Correct.
What is this, a trick question?
Gain some information, right? Correct. But you're not supposed to judge one way or the other, right? You're supposed to remain neutral. That's correct. And you're not supposed to narrow that role as a police officer to a particular person. Is that correct? That's correct. In other words, you're supposed to look at the evidence as a whole. And rather than focusing on one person and saying, we're going to assume this person did this, and we're going to build our case around prosecuting that person, that would be inappropriate, wouldn't it? Right. Your role is actually to look at all the evidence, consider all the evidence. And once you've gathered all the evidence that you think is relevant to a case, what do you do with that evidence? We follow the evidence.
Pause it a sec.
Okay. And then once you follow the evidence, you've established a you've come to concluding your investigation. What do you do with that evidence that you've concluded with? We put a case together. Okay, and then do you provide it to someone? We provide it to the prosecutors. Okay, so there's distinct roles as part of a
Well, while it's refreshing.
case. You'd agree with that,
Tell you
right?
later.
Yes. And your role is to conduct an investigation, correct? Correct. Look into all possible evidence of any kind, correct? Correct. And view the evidence, right? Yes. Not make any determination as to what that evidence means, but rather gather as much evidence as you think is relevant in your mind.
Pause it a sec, Jay.
Does it keep cutting out?
It just started that, but while you're
No, hold on. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so I just want to say that, and I'm sure you guys all know this because I'm sure it's gotten mentioned thus far. This all started as a missing children's case. So what they're talking about right now about like you're supposed to be investigating the crime and then following the leads. Well, they were literally investigating Lori for the fact that her children had gone missing and she seemed to not care. So this isn't a situation where the police are investigating a crime, someone is found dead and they don't know where to look and they're starting to look at everyone, which might encompass the family. This all started with a mother not reporting her kid missing, seemingly not caring that her kids were missing, and then having her friends lie about the children's whereabouts. So the fact that they weren't investigating other leads in that scenario doesn't mean shit.
That evidence, correct? Correct. Okay. And then at that point, only at that point, do you provide it to the prosecuting attorney and they make a determination as to whether or not they will pursue charges against it? Do you understand, is that the way you understand the process is supposed to work?
Yes.
Okay. And if you were not to follow that process, if you were not to follow what I just described, that wouldn't be appropriate. There's protocols. You agree with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you should never blend the roles of a police officer with the role of a prosecuting attorney. You would agree with that, right?
Explain what you mean by blend the roles.
Well, I mean, it's not a prosecutor's role to show up at an investigation when you're conducting an investigation and engage in part of the process of interviewing witnesses. You'd agree with that, right?
I've had prosecutors show up to certain investigations.
Okay, but that's not the norm, is it?
I think it depends on the investigation.
Okay, okay. So in other words, you think that it's
We're trying to get
appropriate
out
that
of
if a
this.
prosecutor is deciding whether to pursue charges against somebody, that they should also participate in the interviewing of these witnesses as part of that process. Is that what you're telling me?
I think it's important for a prosecutor to have all the information.
Well, doesn't that create a problem in your mind?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, let me talk to you a little bit about that. Because if you're doing an investigation and you're really remaining neutral as part of that investigation, right? You're not supposed to make judgments, correct?
Correct.
You're supposed to look at the evidence, gather all the evidence, and then make a determination of what evidence you want to submit to a prosecuting attorney, right?
Correct.
Do you ever get involved in the process of deciding whether someone should be charged or not?
What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, after the evidence is all gathered, and after you've done your report as a police officer and put together all of the information, do you ever go over to the prosecutor's office and say, you know what, I put this evidence together, and you know what, I want to have a discussion with you about whether or not we want to charge this person? That wouldn't be appropriate, would
I
it?
think it would be. I
I'm
don't.
gonna object to this argument.
It should be.
It's the same. Okay. But would it be appropriate for a prosecutor to interview witnesses and inject their personal opinion in those processes of interviewing witnesses? Would that be proper under any circumstances?
And I'm gonna object to this argument.
I'll overrule that objection.
All right.
And could you repeat the question again?
Yes.
What the hell?
Happen? I don't even get it. I don't remember
What the
hearing.
What is East?
Appropriate for a prosecutor to interview witnesses and inject their personal opinion in those processes of interviewing witnesses. Would that be proper under the circumstances?
To interject their personal opinion?
Yeah.
I would say probably not.
Okay. So if you're engaging in name calling or making references to a person's character in a case, that would clearly be an inappropriate act, would it not?
Objection beyond the scope, Your Honor.
That's sustained, and that's facts, not evidence.
Right.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Now,
I don't remember hearing those facts personally, but
you spoke a little bit about this body cam issue. And you said that it was a policy that there's only one body cam a month.
That was policy. I just said there was only one body cam.
Oh,
We
so,
took in 7 that take. That was policy. I just said there was only one body cam.
oh,
We
so,
took in 7 that take.
so in other words, you share a body cam. It's not a policy within the department.
Correct.
Okay, is there a policy in the department about recording or trying to preserve a record when you're interviewing witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, and what's that policy, sir?
When we interview and conduct interviews at the police department,
Yeah.
those interviews are recorded.
Okay. Now, what about if you're out in the field and you're conducting an interview? Is that to be recorded as well?
There's no policy that says it has to be recorded.
Okay. Do you carry a microphone as well, officer, other than a body cam?
No, not on my person, I don't.
Okay. Do you carry a cell phone while you're doing that? That's issued by the county.
Do I keep the cell phone in my car? Yes.
I didn't ask you that. I said, do you carry a cell phone when you go out in the field?
On my person or in my vehicle?
Either one.
In my vehicle.
Okay. And does that cell phone have the technology that allows you to to record or photograph and videotape images?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So what I understand is on November 26, 2019, you were directed.
I'm just pausing this real quick to let you guys know that I have to go, but we're gonna give you a little preview of what's gonna happen next week, because my wonderful wife Shannon's gonna come on with Allie, and she's gonna, until it goes to lunch, she's gonna watch with you guys. So if you're not subscribed, she has her own channel, Mindful Crime Couture. Give her a follow, and we will be back on Monday for this case, but Babe will be coming on very shortly. But let me continue this for now.
Where do you get off using my names?
Huh?
So she's Babe and Bob's Babe.
I know, Babe.
We're
I called Bob Babe yesterday.
Well, I call Bob Babe too, though. So,
so do you want me to like? All
right, guys. You got to do your high five thingamajig that Bob did.
We got to do a high five.
Like the sub out.
I'm gonna turn off the camera because I'm gonna show her how to do everything here. So
okay,
she will be back. Love you guys, and
well, hit play while.
Yeah, I'll hit play. I'll hit play while it's still. I'll wait.
You directed your folks to go out to the Lori Vallow residence. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you said that you were with Ron Ball. Is that who you said you were with?
At one time, yes, I was with a couple different officers that day.
So tell me who you were with on that day. Remind me.
Detective Dave Holt.
Okay.
Detective David Stubbs.
Okay.
And Lieutenant Ron Ball.
I mean, at this time they had just found out she told her friends to lie, so I can see them going back.
To locate or to find out some information about what again? Remind me.
The missing children?
JJ Vallow.
Okay, and this was a concern that
I forgot. Can you remind me?
Had because you were contacted by another law enforcement agency expressing concern about the safety of a young child, right?
No, sir.
Okay, tell me what was the purpose?
It was a simple welfare check.
Okay. And you went out on this welfare check, and there were, if my map is correct, please correct me. Did all four of you detectives and lieutenants go out at the same time?
No, sir.
You went out at different times.
Myself and Dave Hope went out initially.
Okay, and then when did the other two officers show up?
When I called them based on the lies that I had been told.
Yeah, and I think Alex was like hiding upstairs.
At that point, you and Detective Hope, neither of you decided to bring a video camera, right?
That's correct.
And neither of you decided to wear a recorder to record any of the incidents that took place about these so-called lies, right?
That's correct.
And nobody took out their phone and recorded it or made a video or audio recording of the discussion with Mr. Daybell or Mr. Cox on November 26, 2019, right?
That's correct.
And even after you said these so-called lies, even after you discovered that, Mr. Daybell apparently told you something that you didn't think was true, at that point, did you instruct any of the officers who were coming to aid you? Maybe it's a good idea we should bring an audio with, or a video camera with us, or a mic to record some of these statements, because I have some concerns.
They didn't even know anyone was dead yet, though.
Hold on.
I'm going with that. There was an objection. I'm sustaining the objection. So strike the answer. You can ask another question, Mr. Pryor.
No wonder you wanted to go to lunch.
And it was Detective Stubbs who had the video cam, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Oh my God.
And that was when you video cammed Miss Vallow, about when you had contact eventually with Miss Vallow, is that what the video camera that you're talking about?
I didn't have contact with Miss Vallow.
Somebody
Now,
body cam.
I'm a little confused about something. And maybe you can clear this up. You said that you asked Mr. Daybell first about whether he had Lori Vallow's phone number, correct?
No, sir. I didn't contact Mr. Daybell till after I contacted Alex Cox.
Okay. At some point, did you ask for Lori Vallow's phone number from Mr. Daybell?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And at no point did you ever make a threat to him saying you're going to turn this phone number over to us, right?
No, sir.
At no point did any other officer walk up to him and say, if you don't turn this phone number over, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. That never took place to your knowledge, right?
That's correct.
I
Okay.
believe that could
But
have
then
happened.
after
but-
that, you're saying, at first he said, I'm not going to give you the phone number.
Just barely
And
hear.
then out of the blue, he decides to give you the phone number.
Objection misstates the facts and evidence.
Okay, then subsequent to that, he
Hold on,
decides.
Mr. Pryor. When there's an objection, I'm gonna rule on it before you launch into another question. So the objection is sustained.
Subsequent to that, he decides to give you the phone number. Is that right?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'll go back over the analysis here.
Thank you.
Your testimony is that Mr. Daybell refused to give you the phone number at first, correct?
That's correct.
And that was an adamant refusal. He said, no, I don't know what her phone number is, right?
That's correct.
And then
It's a
without
lie.
any further prompting by the police officers or any encouragement by law enforcement, he shows back up and gives you the phone number later, right?
Objection, he's misstating the facts and the
Well,
evidence.
I'm trying to establish the facts, Judge.
The objection's overruled. If the witness has an answer, you may answer.
Oh, you can change.
You say he showed back up, he never left when I originally asked him.
Okay.
I had to ask him twice to get the phone number.
Okay, and how much time passed between the first request and the second?
Okay.
Up, right, left, the two little lines.
Roughly a minute.
Okay,
Left,
so without any prompting by the police,
where you search.
he asked him for the phone number, he denied, and then within 60 seconds, he said, oh, here's the phone number. Is that what your testimony is?
When
It
Detective Hope
It is
started
blurry. I
working
don't know if you
towards
can
us,
refresh or
and I
if it's
re-asked
not.
him again, that's when he
Thank
gave me the
you.
number.
Well, okay.
So you had to ask him twice, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Right, it might just be the court's internet connection because
No,
Zoom looks clear and just facts and
I'm
everything
gonna
else.
kind of bounce around a little bit, okay? Please bear with me, okay?
It's the worst
You made
cross-examination I've ever
a
heard.
comment about supposed paintball guns, and if I misquote your testimony, please correct me, okay? You said something about a supposed
audio-
paintball gun incident
So bad.
with Tammy Daybell, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you later on decided that it was a word
Oh no.
This has happened
you
before.
used were a shooting.
Okay.
Is that the word?
I was like, oh great. As soon as I'm in charge,
Right.
I
No,
messed
it was,
something up.
it was happening before. It is not you.
Okay,
you
good.
use?
Ah.
Probably.
Well, you were just here testifying a few minutes ago, and you used the word shooting when Mr. Wood talked to you about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as part of your investigation,
Yes, yes.
you got a chance to look at all the evidence, right? In this case, you got access to almost all the
Oh, Lord.
Oh my gosh.
The picture's
evidence
getting
in this
clearer,
case,
so maybe
Correct.
maybe something
Have
fixed.
you gone through all the evidence in this case?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and did you look at evidence of facts?
Oh, Lord. I'd love to know what this guy's getting at.
Circumstances surrounding the Tammy Daybell incident on October 9th?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Judge, just bear with me.
This one he might have some wiggle room to bring out some points because initially it seemed like nothing, but I still think through the lens of what we know now, it was something that just was missing.
Your Honor, if he's going to be showing evidence digitally, can we put our screen back up?
Yeah.
Does anyone think this guy's making the slightest bit of leeway thus far? I mean, I don't, but I'm just wondering if anyone else does.
Not sure I'm gonna be up there about. Okay. Now, I would represent to you
Yes.
that we previously stipulated to the admission of a number of exhibits in this case. And one of the exhibits is exhibit number 16. Okay? And the parties that previously exhibited, Judge, we've already looked at it's already been exhibited. So what I'm gonna do is show you exhibit 16, okay?
And this is one already admitted.
It's already been admitted, Judge.
I'm wondering.
Previously. Now, you talked about facts, and you used the word shooting is what you used, right? Tammy
Oh, Lord. This is probably the only point he can make.
Daybell. And you
don't know.
believe that Tammy Daybell was shot at with anything other than a paintball gun, do you?
Right.
Objection relevant.
That is definitely relevant.
Or
You don't believe that Tammy Daybell was shot with anything other than a paintball gun, do you?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, and what do you base that on?
The evidence through our investigation.
Okay, and part of your investigation is did you look at the Tammy Daybell evidence that she provided to your office?
To my office. Fremont County.
Fremont County.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the pieces of evidence is exhibit number 16.
Here comes my babe.
Is it not lunch break yet?
It's
Judge, I don't see it.
It is. They haven't done it yet. Thanks, sir. I'm not going to eat while I'm on the screen, though.
I mean, you could just stop the camera.
That's true.
Oh my goodness.
council, if you'd like, we can take a lunch break or we can keep moving on here for a minute.
Here we are, Judge.
Okay.
I'm surprised the judge isn't trying to take lunch. He probably thinks he's going to be done soon. No, the cross, which thus far has been extremely
Okay,
underwhelming.
and officer, I'd have you turn to the screen and see if you can read the screen. Just read it. Not out loud, just to yourself.
Tammy did think she was shot at, but that the person was holding a
Paintball.
gun. Right, but I just think that she, in a million years, didn't think someone's trying to shoot her. Like, to me, it's
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That
And
wasn't even in the realm of what she was thinking.
right.
I would represent to you that this is a email from Tammy Daybell to her friends in the Salem 3rd Ward of her church. Okay? And would you start with the word something and read the email to me?
Something really weird just happened. I want you to know. Oh, so you can watch out. I'd gotten home and parked in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing his ski mask suddenly standing at the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded.
Or the shooter was incompetent
I
with
yelled
the
for
weapon.
Chad and he ran around the back of the house. I have no idea what his motive was, and he never spoke, even after I asked him several times. what he, though.
Okay, so, and do you see the date on this email? It's just about friends. Is there a
I'm gonna object to this being characterized as an email.
I'll sustain that. Do you want to clarify, Mr. Farr, what type of communication it is?
Well, it's a communication to the friends of the church, and I think it's a text
I'm
message.
sorry.
I can. I believe it's a text message.
Shen, do you know how to switch the stream?
Okay.
I don't, but I'll
Or
text
to-
Jay and he can
Or
maybe
to
walk me through it.
refresh your
So this text
whatever you're
message
playing
went
it
out to all
through?
of the friends in Salem Third Ward. So now
People are
these-
saying that long crimes is clear. It's
Okay,
not.
let me, like, if I, but I have it paused on there. I don't know. Okay. Ooh. I'll text Jay, guys.
So, in the meantime, it just seems to, coincidental in retrospect, knowing what we know now, that was really just some random guy with a paint gun. But I do know that they had thought it was like a neighbor and like somebody was doing something weird, but it still seems possible that like Alex didn't know how to work the gun.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's an argument. It is a decent argument for this lawyer to be asking right now. Although the other questions, I couldn't tell you why. I guess he was trying to imply, oh, they just broke for lunch.
Oh, they did?
Good. Perfect.
Oh, well, good.
So, the the fact that like the whole thing he was getting at, like, did somebody threaten him to get the phone number out of him? Like that may very well be true, but the whole point of it is he wasn't giving out her number to the police who were looking for the kids. Why? Because you sensed their blackness, like
right.
It does speak to Chad's state of mind, and I'm wondering, because I didn't hear the opening, if what they're trying to argue is like that he had no clue. He thought that the kids were somewhere safe, and when Lori said they're safe someplace, that he actually believed that to be true. Although I find that so almost impossible, just because they apparently talked about everything. He knew so many aspects of her life. Where would he think this mystery place that the kids were that were safe?
Right.
So I don't know. Should we let the people now break for lunch and tell them we'll see them after lunch?
Yes. And it will be, yeah, is Jay coming back, or is it just you and Bob this afternoon? I don't know what he said.
It's either one. I think it's just us, but I thought when he like said you were coming, that he said he'd see people after lunch. So
Yeah.
whatever ends up, I guess we'll find out between
Okay.
now and then. Otherwise,
right.
it will be Bob and I.
All right. Awesome. So stay tuned, guys. I hope you have your notifications turned on, and that's the only way to truly know everything.
You're so great at this. You are the better looking Jay, and because you're Jay and I'm Bob right now in our names. So.
I know. We are.
All right.
We are
bye,
definitely
all.
better looking, but I don't know about if we're running the stream better.
Right. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great
See you
day.
soon, Jen.